Okay, you ready? We'll call this meeting to order.
Please rise. Oh, yes, this county commission meeting in Sumner County is now open pursuant to adjournment. God bless this country and this honorable commission. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff Weatherford. Tonight, our invocation will be brought by Darrell Duncan of Old Union Church of Christ. He's currently the Associate Minister for Old Union Church of Christ in Castellan Springs. He's been in ministry for 30 years, most time spent in Wilson County. He grew up in Gallatin, graduated from Gallatin High School and David Lipscomb University. He resides in Gallatin with his wife, Tracy. Both also teach at Merrill Hyde Magnet School. They love to travel and see the world and have been to 3 continents and over 20 different countries. And if you ever get a chance to watch him teach, you should, because he is amazing in the classroom. And I'm looking forward to hearing him preach. I would ask if everybody, Dr. Phillips is normally at every budget budget session at the commission. He had an emergency appendectomy this morning, and appreciate if you would keep him in your prayers tonight. So, Brother Duncan, if you don't mind offering our invocation.
If you would like to so join, I'm going to lead us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for what you give us and for what we have. And Father, in a week which we are often concerned about the weather, we ask that you be with those who are working outside. Many of them work for this county, and today has been a hard day and it'll be a hard week. And so we just ask that you give a blessing. Father, we ask that you be with those in this room tonight who've come with things that they need to talk about, those that are representing different ideas, and Father, those that will take those ideas and turn them into plans and future things. Father, I'm very thankful, and I pray specifically for those that sit here on this commission. Father, we ask so much of them. We ask them often to be frugal, yet plan for future. We ask them to have conviction, yet we ask them to compromise so things can get done. And Father, while our votes may have brought them to this room, it is their conviction to servants that keep them in their seats. And Father, I'm thankful for that. They hold a role that is not easy in this county or in any place in these times. And Father, no commission could have planned for what's been in the last few years and maybe even what is to come. And so Father, thank you for their hearts as servants, their minds as they come together. And Father, while we often hear a headline, what we don't know is the decisions and the agony and the sleepless nights that they really thought about an issue and cared deeply about an issue before they cast their vote. And Father, as someone who's lived in this county pretty much their whole life, I'm thankful for those that have been in this room before this group. We thank you for this group and for those that will come afterwards, that lead this county to a place that so many of us are blessed to call home. And sometimes we wonder, are too many people moving here? But Father, they're moving because we have a great place to live. And a lot of us may need to be reminded of that sometime. Father, be with them tonight. Bless them. Be with their families. Be with us. Have open minds, open hearts, open ears. And Father, may all that we do give you glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's check our roll.
Roll call is now open. Each commissioner, please record your presence.
Sir. All right, thank you, Mr. Kemp. Just a reminder for our deliberations tonight, we have 23 seated commissioners at the time, so a majority is 12 votes. A 2/3 majority remains 16 votes. So any motion that requires 2/3 will require 16 votes. A majority is 12 votes for tonight. All right, roll has been called. The regular agenda and consent agenda are before you. Is there a motion to approve our regular and consent agenda? Commissioner Kruger, motion second by Commissioner Foster. Mr. Mansfield.
Yes, I have 2 items I want to vote on, move. First is to move fixing the tax levy as item number 6 to item number 1 before the budgets.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Mansfield. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hyde. So the amendment to the resolution is to move 2206-07 to the top, to the first thing considered under budget. Is that correct, Mr. Mansfield?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so a yes vote is to move that item on the agenda. A no vote is to leave the agenda as it is. Let's vote. I'm sorry, give us 1 second, we'll vote. Yeah, move 2206-07, fixing the tax levy. Move it to be the first thing that we consider under budget before everything else. So a yes vote is to make that move, a no vote is to keep the agenda as is.
All right, the amendment is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. Three affirmative votes, fails to carry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kemp.
Also would like to move, Mr. Chairman, to sever the budgets. Commissioner Wright wasn't able to be here tonight, and I had his permission to kind of relay his concerns. His thoughts were that, school, sheriff, highway department, administrative budget should be voted on separately. He was asking every single commissioner who has a personal interest in this budget to abstain from the vote. He didn't feel that we should have, you should vote on an all-inclusive budget, allowing for our own gain to be masked by pulling on the heartstrings of the public, is what he said. And so separate budgets are the only solution to have a fair vote. So I move to sever the budgets.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Mansfield to sever the budgets. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hyde. So just so we're all on the same page, a motion to, if successful, the motion to sever the budgets we would vote on each budget individually instead of all collectively. That would require different people being able to vote on those based on their employment, whether they work for the county, whether they work for the sheriff's department, or the employment of their spouse. So a yes vote is to sever the budgets and vote on them individually. A no vote is to keep the budgets together and vote on the budgets as a whole.
The amendment is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. With 5 affirmative votes, fails to carry.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kemp. All right. I would like to offer an amendment. I know that's what I'm doing. I'd like to add, it'll be resolution, I'm trying, Lee, 2206-21. That's the resolution that's on your table. It says, be it resolved by the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners that this body does hereby authorize a transfer between major counties or major categories within the general fund for the Sumner County Public Library as shown. And it's, the movements are on the back there. Okay, it's about $3,500. All right, I made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Taylor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So that will be 2206-21, but we will add it after 2206-07, Mr. Taylor, under budget. All right, back to the main motion. Is there a we've got a motion and a second to approve our agenda. No one else in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. Mr. Mansfield votes no. Any other no's? Okay. By a vote of 18-1, the agenda passes. All right, your minutes are in your packet. Is there a motion by Commissioner Taylor, second by Commissioner Foster to approve the minutes? I see no one in the queue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Does anyone wish to sign up to speak tonight on anything listed on the budget for public comments? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay. Yeah, with no objection, let's do our recognitions first, and then we'll go to public comments because we've got about, looks like about 11 or 12 people signed up to speak. All right, so I'm going to yield the floor to Judge Howard. Thank you, Judge Howard, for coming tonight. What's that? Yeah, and bring anyone you have with you, Judge Howard, that would like to come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Judge David Howard, Juvenile Court here in Sumner County, and it is my distinct honor to recognize a proclamation involving my friend and long-term employee, frankly, Frank Heathman, who is retiring from juvenile court service after 22 years. 22 years ago, a much younger David Howard left juvenile court probation, and a much younger Frank Heathman started on juvenile court probation. 22 years later, I've had the honor to be Frank's boss since I have been in office, and the thousands of children and the thousands of families that he has served and assisted in our county is certainly something that every one of us should be proud of. And so it is the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners meeting in regular session on this, the 13th day of June 2022, does hereby honor and commend Mr. Gordon Franklin Heathman, that's Frank, on his retirement from the Sumner County Juvenile Court. And Frank and his lovely wife is here, and son.
Motion made by Commissioner Ring, second by Commissioner Shell. Go ahead, Judge Howard, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I get ahead of myself.
Baker jumped in there.
That's all right. So
Hold Baker in contempt if you want.
the evening is young. So it is my distinct pleasure to award Frank, his lovely wife Pam, his son Cameron with this recognition, and apparently you get a snazzy medal in the process.
This is like the Olympics. Yeah, I like it. Thank you.
Frank, it is my distinct pleasure, my friend, and I wish you the absolute best.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you.
That's it, brother.
Thank you, my friend.
Mr. Heathman, before you leave, I'd just like to say, I'm sure Mr. Hyde could tell some stories, but we won't do that tonight. But I can just say, I remember when I first met you when I was an assistant principal at White House Middle School. And I got to say, like, nobody appreciates the work that he's done over the years because it's a tough job, but he approached every child with the intent of helping them to the best of his ability. And you never saw a child entrusted to him that didn't have his full heart poured into him. So thank you so much for what you've given to the county.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We want that to be official. Actually spread on the minutes. All right, I'm going to yield to Mr. Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can have Dorothy Sweat and her family, her husband Raymond, two daughters here, Jennifer and Adrian, and granddaughter Layla. No? Come on. And come on up here. Dorothy is retiring from the county clerk's office. Come on. Okay, I'll take time. Take time, Raymond. I'm sorry. I didn't mean don't interrupt. Hicks, come over here. With 43 years of experience. Dot has, in the past, been the manager of our Hendersonville office. She is currently the manager of our Gallatin Motor Vehicle Department and runs a great ship. And if you have a when I have a motor vehicle question, Dot is who I want to talk to get it answered. But we are here to recognize Dorothy and her family with a proclamation from the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners. On this day, we do hereby honor and commend Dorothy Sweat on her retirement from the Sumner County Clerk's office. And Mr. Chairman, we can take a motion in a second.
I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hinton. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And I'm not going to put this on you. You can hold it. Hey, you want to speak?
I just want to say thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Doc. Hey, Doc, and she's done a great job. Great job. We're going to miss her. Thank you.
And if we could let the minutes reflect that Mr. Graves made that motion. He was in there before me. So, sorry about that, Mr. Graves. All right, the Merrill Hyde boys tennis team couldn't be here tonight, so we're going to honor them in July. But what an accomplishment, their second state championship, and what an amazing accomplishment for them. We'll be able to celebrate with them next month. All right, your docketing for the Highway Public Works Fund Analysis for 21-22 is in your packet. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Commissioner Ring. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Foster. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Yeah, let's go back to public comments now. All right, let me just, as we begin, we've got about 11 or 12 people signed up to speak tonight. So let me remind everybody of the rules. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. It will be, when you're standing up here to speak, it'll be in red numbers in the bottom right-hand corner of the monitor up there in the back of this room. And just want to remind everybody that your comments need to be addressed to the chair and not to individual commissioners. It's not a back and forth. It's not a question and answer session. It's a public comment, and you're allowed to speak to things on the agenda. We ask that no one make derogatory comments about a citizen of Sumner County, a government institution. We want comments to reflect the character of Sumner County. That's our request in your public comments. And we ask that when you come up, you state your name and your address, and then you'll be able to speak. Mr. Kemp will start the clock after you give your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. I'm going to call the first speaker and then tell the next person that's on deck. So first speaker will be John Mann, and as Mr. Mann comes up, Mr. Shepard, you'll be on deck next. Mr. Mann, if you'll state your name and address, and then the floor will be yours.
My name's John Mann. I live at 120 Moyna Drive in Hendersonville. Good evening. My name is John Mann. I'm a longtime resident of Sumner County. I'm an elementary school principal here. My wife is a teacher here in Sumner County, and we have 3 daughters who have attended Sumner County schools and still do. I'm just here tonight to ask that everyone vote in favor of the school budget. We have a very invested interest in this district, personally, professionally, and I just want everyone to consider the positive impact a yes vote will have on all of our employees and in turn our students and families. Our school staff and students, we need this budget to pass. These raises would be vital to everyone. They're going to help educators. They're going to help bus drivers who are, I can't even tell you. And all support staff. And that's going to help us continue to have people apply to be in this district and to stay in this district. We have a shortage of people, and to be able to get people to come and work for us and to stay with us, they need to be able to afford to live here. And this is what that's going to do. Our students deserve to be taught in schools that are full of educators and staff that are valued. And this proposed budget, it goes directly to staff. I've worked in places where there's a lot of fluff in budgets, and this is not that. We have to work together because we just have to. That's the only way that we're going to be able to keep going with what we've been doing. And these last 2.5, 3 years, however long, it feels like an endless cycle. It's been really, really hard for everyone, but particularly the people that are on the ground every day, driving buses, taking care of students with special needs, school nurses, everybody. That's what you're voting for, to keep those people going. There's just no question in my mind about it. So I appreciate all of your all's service to the community and your support in our schools. And I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. All right. Hey, Let me go. Mr. Shepherd's coming. Ms. Squires will be next. Let me just ask everybody if you'll refrain from applause. We want to keep good order in the meeting, and let's refrain from applause and let everybody have a chance to speak. Mr. Shepherd.
Hi, I'm Cole Shepherd. Excuse me, live at 637 East Main Street in Gallatin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the ability to speak. And first of all, I'd like to thank the commission, the school board, and all of our county employees. I don't think I get to say that enough, so I want to say it out here to everybody. You work very hard, and we know you do. We've come a long way since 2014, when we had closed schools, we had horribly bad infrastructure in our schools, we had reduced EMS services, we had reduced services across the board. We've come a long, long way. And again, I want to thank the commission and the school board and all those that worked hard to get us where we are today. And I don't want us to go back. I fear that there's a movement afoot to put us back in those days, and we've worked too hard for that. We should all be proud of what we have. Our children get a great education. The gentleman that spoke before me went and listed all these people in the schools that do all these incredible things for our kids, and we have to keep that going. We have to get the staff paid. We have to make sure our emergency services are adequately staffed and equipped. And I could go on, but in the interest of time, I would just like to say that I would like to urge the commission to vote for these budget items as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Ms. Squires is up. Mr. Shute will be on deck. Ms. Squires, if you can share your name and address, and then you can begin speaking.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Squires. I live at 148 Creekwood Lane in Hendersonville, and I have a child going into 5th grade at a Sumner County school. On the last day of school, my child hopped in the car as happy as could be, telling me he had a great day. And then it got very quiet. He told me that his favorite teacher would be leaving school and would not be returning next year. Upon talking with this teacher a little bit further, this is a teacher with almost 2 decades of service to Sumner County and a former Teacher of the Year. They told me that they were going to a district that was finally going to pay them what they were worth. It's time to pay Sumner County teachers, bus drivers, and staff what they are worth. I humbly ask you to approve the budget this year so we can have a great year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Squires. Mr. Shute and Linton Beck will be up next. And Mr. Shute, if you can just state your name and address, and then you can begin.
My name is Sam Shutt.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
That's fine. My professors used to do that every time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shutt. I'll remember it next time.
That was a long time ago, though.
If you come back in the next 2 meetings, I'll remember that.
Anyway, my name is Sam Shutt. I live at 102 Shallow Ridge in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak. In 2010, I called 3 commissioners, and that other than my own 2 commissioners, and I also met with their county executive at the time, and I pleaded with them to provide more resources for school facilities, technology, and other resources to improve educational outcomes. I ran a facility of 150 to 300 people in Sumner County, so I understood the impact of a good education. And I received a cool reception to my ideas at that time. And since that time, there have been 2 tax increases, and those school resources that I asked for have been provided and more. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir,
to consider questions when you deliberate the budget. And I'm going to give you one specific item on the line item that makes my point. There's almost $100,000 budgeted for the commission's own retirement. That is there because commissioners voted with not a single no vote. No one asked the right question. I'm going to frame up this discussion with two questions. The first one is this a good political environment for passing these budgets? The second question, is the macroeconomic environment conducive to passing these budgets as is? I'll start with the second point. We live in a time of high and growing inflation. We live where the economic growth is shrinking. The GDP in the first quarter was minus 1.4%. That's called stagflation. That came around when I was just entering the workforce. And that environment has a greater probability of taking us to a recession next year and the year after, maybe even starts this year. Then that's going to result in the anxiety effect, reduced demand and lost jobs. Count on it. Why? Because the federal debt as a percentage of the GDP is way beyond 100%. Why? Because the money supply, everybody in here got free money. Money supply went up. I hope you enjoyed it. Now's the time to pay. And the Fed is late to the game. They have delayed raising interest rates. They're going to come on hard and they're going to come on strong very soon. Here's an article. I've got an article from today's Wall Street Journal. If you want a copy, I'll give it to you. But it's coming. And Mr. Chairman, this commission needs to vote in light of those economic conditions. They're coming. The stock market is telling us that. Inflation was higher, and the market the last 3 days has just hammered us. The market tells you something. They got all the information. It's coming, folks. Finally, the last point I want to make is go back to the first question. Is this a good political time for passing the budget? My assessment is to pass it as is. It's probably a good political time. You know what I mean by that. But that's playing with lack of professionalism, in my personal opinion. I'm trying to present some facts that should alarm people in here, because how are governments supposed to respond to this? The state of Tennessee has been told by economists, take your $1 billion surplus, don't spend it. City of Hendersonville's holding on to $11 million. This body has a chance to put the pain off and punish us next year, and it'll punish every citizen in here. I'm asking you as a body to reconsider, send some of these budgets back for revision, because you need to consider all residents of Sumner County, every resident, the seniors, the young mother that's a single mother that may lose her home. I almost lost my home when the first stagflation came around. I know how it feels. So thank you. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Shutt. Again, I would ask everybody to refrain from applause after each speaker. Mr. Beck, if you'll state your name, and then you can begin speaking, name and address, and then James Stocks will be on deck next.
Right, my name is Linton Beck. I live at 3044 Highway 25, Cottontown, Tennessee. Good evening. About 2 months ago, I was sitting in my chemistry class at Station Camp High School, and I was talking to my friends, which is kind of normal to do at the beginning of class, and I slumped over. Later, I was in the hospital, and I was told I had a cardiac arrest. Prior to this, there was absolutely nothing that showed that, hey, you have a heart condition and there's something you need to do about it. So no one was informed, nothing was ready. Well, everything was ready, but nothing was like, hey, we need to watch this person. But everyone responded exactly how they were supposed to. Even though it was completely unforeseen, everyone, all the teachers, all the staff was ready to do exactly what the plan was in place. Within a minute, my teacher had been notified and the school emergency team was in the room. Within 3 minutes, the nurse was providing CPR and the SRO officer was running up to the classroom with the AED. Within 5 minutes, the AED was set up, and I had 2 shocks and several rounds of CPR before my heart started back. Most of the time, AEDs aren't seen as something that kids like me need to have, but they're seen as like old people or someone with a heart problem need to use them. But it's not always diagnosed that someone has a heart problem before it actually shows up. It could be the person that's sitting behind me in class. It could be the person that's skipping the lunch line. It could be the quarterback on the school team or anything. But I was very lucky to be in a wonderful school where there was a plan in place and everything was ready for that exact instance, even though no one knew it was going to happen. I want to thank everyone for supporting the funding that ensures that nurses and AEDs are in every school, and so that if anything happens like that again, everyone can be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Linton. Thank you, Mr. Beck. And again, we're excited to see you walking around and able to live fully. Mr. Stocks is on his way up. Tracy Richardson, you'll be on deck. Mr. Stocks, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. My name is Jim Stocks. I live at 104 Downing Court in Hendersonville. I'm here today to tell you that I strongly support the proposed school budget and to ask you to approve it. An excellent public school system is at the heart of any community that is strong economically, that is culturally vibrant, that has a stable, secure citizenry, and is well positioned for the future. The quality of our schools is an investment that benefits the entire community. It impacts everything from our property values to the types of employers and quality high-paying jobs we were able to attract, to the fundamental basic ability of our residents, their children, and their grandchildren to lead educated, well-rounded, productive, and happy lives as part of a world that is ever more dependent on an educated citizenry. But again, that system is an investment. Getting a top-notch educational system is not free. Like any investment, it requires putting in the time, money, and effort on the front end and then sticking to the plan. Our hardworking educators, our administrators, our teachers, our counselors, our custodians, and of course our bus drivers, as well as parents and the students themselves, have been doing just that for years now. And the rest of us here in Sumner County have been doing the same with investments of our tax dollars, our time, and our moral support for our kids and our educators. We've all seen the improvements and the rewards that have resulted from everyone's efforts. And things continue to improve. What I don't want to see is that improvement stop, or even worse, regress. My kids have already graduated from Sumner County schools. They've gone on to university, but I still want to see our schools thrive and continue to improve. I am still invested in all of our kids. And that is why I strongly ask you to stay invested in them too, and to vote yes on the proposed school budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stocks. Ms. Richardson is up next, and Nikki Bell will be up after her.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson.
My name is Tracy Richardson. I live at 155 Schoolhouse Lane, Castellan Springs. I've been in Sumner County all my life, my entire life. My parents work in the school system. My son works in the school system. Mr. Hyde, my dad was a custodian for you back in the 70s. I've been here 30 years in this school system. I heard Mr. Mann, I heard a student, I heard a lot of people talk about all of the things that we have to do to come together as a group. And we do. There are so many people that take care of these kids, such as Mr. Beck, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name. You know, we love these kids. We love these kids a lot. We get them to school. All these blue shirts, and I'm sorry I don't have mine on, but all these blue shirts over here, this little sea of blue, we are the reason that they get there. And they're not just kids on a bus. They're their kids. These people have a heart for everything they do. We all do. We're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We answer phones till 9 o'clock. But when you've got people calling in and they're sick and you can't cover them because you don't have enough people to come in and work for us because we have to tell them that they're walking in the door making $12 an hour, that doesn't cut it. Okay, so we're here, I am here on behalf of the Sumner County school system and the budget, and I do hope that you pass it, because we need more good people, more people with these hearts like these people do, and these teachers and the custodians, the cafeteria people, everybody. It takes all of us, not just one person, not just one school, but every employee in this county affects every child, from the top to the bottom. So I appreciate you giving me the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Nikki Bell is up next, and Kevin Bagert is on deck. Ms. Bell, go right ahead.
My name is Nikki Bell. I live at 1008 Indian Trail, Castellan Springs, and I am also here on behalf of my colleagues. We need this school budget to pass. It's not that we want it to pass, we need it to pass. We're so severely short-staffed in the busing department only and transportation. Our supervisors are driving. They're driving every day. They're right there beside us. They support us. We're asking you to support us. We have roughly 130 drivers. We have 225 buses that need to be on the road. We have some drivers that are covering 3 routes when they should be covering 1. Some of us make 2 and 3 loads out of a school when we should be making 1. The kids are getting home later than they normally do, but we're getting them home. We're taking care of the kids that we love because we love our jobs. We're there every day before you guys, a lot of you are even awake. And we're still on the road when some of you are home making dinner for your families. We're still driving to get your babies home to you. Starting at $12 an hour is something hard to do. When you come in the door, back when I started at $10 an hour. But you have drivers coming in now making $12 an hour. There is a driver, just one, as an example. She's been with us for 20 years. 20 years is a long time. That's a big part of your life. You've loved a lot of children. You've got a lot of children to school and home safe every day. This driver makes $15.86 an hour. She's been here 20 years. I have a 16-year-old. She keeps me on my toes. She works at Walmart, been there 6 months. She makes and started at $17 an hour. We can't compete with restaurants and chains like that. We need these people, we need to be able to retain people. And I've seen so many people come in and they'll work with us for a little while, but then somebody like a fast food chain, Dairy Queen, pays more than we do. These are our children. And it's not just the bus drivers, like the people before me said, it is our schools, our nurses, our teachers. We need this. We need this to make us better. Ask yourself an honest question. $12 an hour. You come into this job and you have up to 84 children behind you. There's one of you, and you're hauling 84 kids for $12 an hour. You have to love this job. You have to be dedicated to this job. You have to, because if you don't, you see what we have. We're short. We need the funding to retain people. For example, back to what I was talking about a second ago. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing. My daughter working at Walmart, $17 an hour. She started right off the street. She's a 16-year-old kid that is still in high school. I have a special driver's license. I have to have a CDL with a B endorsement. I have a passenger endorsement, and I have a school bus endorsement. On top of the DOTs that I have, the physicals that I have to take every year, the trainings that we have to go to, the CPR trainings, the summer classes, there's a lot more to it than just getting on my bus every day and going to your house and picking up your child and going to your house and picking up your child. There's so much more that people don't know that we do. We do above and beyond. And now we're asking for you to support us and pass this budget for everybody in the school system. We need this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bell. Mr. Bagert and Ms. Solier, you'll be on deck.
Kevin Bagert, 424 A.B. Wade Road. Where do I start? It's really great to see so many people here tonight. I wish you all would come month after month after month to know the real story here. I'd like you all to think about, why didn't you get raises last year or the year before that or the year before that? Because as some gentleman said, because it wasn't politically expedient. I rise to oppose the Sumner County 2022-23 budget and the included school budget, because that's really the elephant in the room. But most of you probably already knew I was going to say that, didn't you? The proposed increases in spending by both the county general and the school system are way out of line with the current economic situation facing all citizens in this county. My recommendation is that the budget, as it currently stands, be sent back to the school board and to the budget committees for retooling. Now, I know you're going to tell me you can't do that because we don't have enough time, blah, blah, blah. Well, if that's the case, then lock in the spending levels at 2022 levels. If the revenue comes in, then you can incrementally give it out as deserving. You know, it's funny that I remember vividly in 2019, we had to give money to all of the certified teachers. Sure, you could have given a little of that to the bus drivers. I mean, it really wasn't just politically expedient, but now it is. Because a lot of the people that are going to be voting on this are gone. And some of those that have conflicts of interest, they're going to vote on it no matter what. On May 31st, at the Combined Education and Budget Committee meeting, I got up and I talked about the pending financial crisis. Well, as one gentleman said, I'm proud to see somebody else is paying attention to the markets. It crashed today. We're on the cusp of going off a cliff. And if the budget left the way it is today, including the extra millions of dollars because we have to fully fund the school up in Liberty Creek, that's more important than paying y'all. Think about that, where the money goes. We have to have nice facades versus paying our people that drive the buses. Think about the priorities here. Where have they been set over the years? But we talk about trying to get people to come together. This budget sticks a knife right in the back of most citizens. Right when most citizens, including all of you, I know, you're gonna, that $7 an hour increase is gonna get eaten up by inflation, but so is the people that aren't getting raises, that work in the private sector. But why didn't these people talk about that last year or the year before when we didn't have a pending crisis? This budget is for next year. And sitting right on the horizon, within the next week, we're going to see, all the economists are predicting it, folks, that the economy is going to tank. And we're all going to suffer. Yes, you'll have your $7 an hour increase or whatever that is and whatever they're promising. Why didn't they give it to you last year or the year before? You're being played as political pawns. I'm sorry to hear that, but oh well.
Thank you, Mr. Bagert. Ms. Solier, you're up. And then Ms. Kay Brooks will be on deck. Ms. Solier, you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Soulier. I reside at 242 Kirkpatrick Drive in Gallatin, Tennessee. I don't think that this is anything that's just suddenly happening for any political reason. I feel like this is something that our commission has been working towards for a really long time. This is my 4th time speaking here, originally in 2014, to beg commissioners to raise my taxes. I pay that $52 every year gladly. I have 3 children in the school system, and I started working in the school system in Sumner County schools in 2009. I was hired, I was 6 months pregnant, directing an after-school program, grew to be the biggest after-school program in our county, and one of the most difficult schools to work in our county. When I was 8 months pregnant, 2 boys started fighting, and there was no one there except me. So 8 months pregnant, I got in between that fight to save the one boy that was being choked, and that was it. Someone else called 911. We didn't have the SROs that we have right now, and I thank all of you who voted to raise taxes and to fund our schools for that. Just a few years ago, I was sitting in an IEP meeting for my son for speech, and outside the door, there was a student who quit breathing. Kind of like the one here, except it wasn't a cardiac issue. I believe it was an allergic reaction, but it's really hard to focus on anything with my child's speech whenever there's a child who's literally laying out there not breathing. And I praise that we had a part-time nurse at that time. If she hadn't been at our school, at our elementary school for that little child that day at that time, I don't know that that child would be here. But thanks to you all who have chosen to continue to fund our schools, we don't have to worry about that because we have a nurse in every school now. We don't share nurses as far as I am aware. After I switched jobs, I went back to being a sign language interpreter, which I do. We have what we call working lunches. That's where we sit and eat, and we also watch the children in our classroom. Not too long ago, a few months ago, I was having my working lunch and I was keeping an eye on all of our students because that's what we do, and a student went into a seizure. Thankfully, I was able to get this very large, sweet child safely down to the ground before he was injured, and then our SET team came in and everyone was able to help get him on his side so that he could quit choking and be breathing. And we have these people in our schools because we're funding our schools and we're making a difference. Back to Rucker, when I was working, the first time I was working, it started raining, and Mr. Turner was the principal then, and he came in, he said, "Okay, guys, let's go." And I was like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "We gotta get the trash cans out." We're getting trash cans? Our roof leaked so bad that every time it rained, you went and got all these huge trash cans and put them in certain spots around the school, mostly in the cafeteria, one in the gym, 2 in the hallways, and 1 in a classroom. That's insanity. But for so long, our schools were so underfunded that these are the things that we had to do. And you know what? Nobody complained. Everybody just did it. That I'm aware of, I just signed up to be a member of the SET team because I feel like I do well under pressure and I don't get nervous. We don't get paid to be trained as the school's emergency response team. I don't even know what that stands for, but you know, people do it. We volunteer to do it because that's what we need in our school system. As I said, I was a sign language interpreter. I'm fixing to start in a new position for various reasons, but with that, I'm taking, I think, a $3 an hour pay cut. That's okay, because I love working with our kids every day. I don't do this for the money, but goodness gracious, we all deserve it. We all deserve it. I bring home right now $344.58 a week. $344.58 a week. I think that's fixing to go down by like $70 or $80 a week. I haven't really looked into it because it is what it is. I'm going to keep doing what I do because I love our kids. I also have 3 kids in the school system. There's no price tag on their safety for having an SRO in these schools. There's no price tag on their health for having nurses in this school. And I thank you all for all the work that you've done, infrastructure, SROs, nurses. Our bus drivers deserve it, our classified employees deserve it, our certified employees deserve it, and I just ask that you would pass this school budget, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hillier. Ms. Kay Brooks is on deck, or is up, I'm sorry, and Chris Taylor will be on deck.
Good evening. My name is Kay Brooks. I live at 123 Trousdale Drive in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Are you listening, Mr. Taylor?
That's not your responsibility.
What I need to ask is how
Direct
much
your
of
comments
my
to the chair,
income
please.
is enough for you all? How much of my income are you going to require that I hand over to you for whatever reason? I earned it. I have a family I need to support. How much? When I came in this evening, I found this penny on the pew. This penny is so old and has been so turned and pinched that the copper is missing. You can't read the date. I need every one of you to turn and pinch every dime and dollar that you're about to spend so that it reveals the nickel underneath. Because I cannot afford another property tax increase. Maybe you can, but there are lots of us out there who cannot. And you're supposed to be guardians of our lives, our money, our resources, because you've just taken that as yours. And again, I ask, how much of my hard-earned money are you demanding that I just hand over to you?
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Mr. Taylor. Just 5 minutes.
Chris Taylor, 115 Trout Valley, Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'd like to just explain a few things to you. One, I'm the budget chair, have been for the last 4 or so years. We're going to give you numbers tonight, and I want to make sure everybody in the room understands where those numbers come from. They come from our fiscal division, which does an amazing job. They're put on the internet, and we've had it on there for over 12 years. They're audited by the state. We've never had a finding. We do amazing ratings on that. And then the second part where we'll present numbers will be from the state of Tennessee itself, from our comptroller's office that does our audits, approves our budgets, approves our fiscal model that we do, and more importantly, reviews everything. So if you don't like the numbers, check it with the state. The next part I want to talk to you about is the job that this commission has done for the last 8 years. And it's pretty amazing. I can't, nor would I ever think to take credit for what our fiscal people, what the budget does, and our school board. Really brilliant people 8 years ago created a fiscal model that did two things. We came out of the 2008-2009 recession having our butts kicked really bad as a county. So we said we have to make sure that we can weather a 2-year recession of 5% each year without a reduction in services or letting people go. Proud to say that this commission has created over $70 million in reserves between our debt services and our general fund. You don't have to worry about it. You're right, there are bad times coming. This county's ready for it, has been ready for it for 8 years. Thank God for that, and long-term planning. The second part I want to talk to you about is what the state has said in other outside agencies about the way we run things. Don't listen to me and don't take my word for it. I always tell people verify it. We have a AA rated bonding, AA plus. Best bond you can get. We can't get a higher bond rating, period. In fact, our bond rating is so good it's better than a lot of private companies. So why is that important? Because what goes into the bond rating is our reserves, our fiscal model, our revenue streams, and our spending, and more importantly, the fact that we have long-term planning. Other agencies, other outside groups have said, hey, Sumner County, you do a fantastic job with your money. Well done. You've kept things going the right way, and you have a great model that does it. And this is where I applaud our school board. When we went into our budget this year, we kind of told all of our departments and elected officials, said, hey, we're not doing any new employees. We have to focus, looking at the job market and the way things are, on keeping what we have. Keeping what we have and taking care of those people that have been so vigilant for us. And so what we said was we're going to do the best we can by them without doing anything irresponsible. And because we've set up things the way we have, the school, I've heard some words, oh, you're going to set up a tax raise. Absolutely not. Not unless the next commission decides to be complete idiots. You have no tax raise. And here's why. The great thing about the model we set up is that if you're not familiar with sales tax, the majority of it goes to the schools and our debt services. We've been supplementing them for years. With the increases that the school's proposing over the next few years for staffing at Liberty Creek and different things, we're actually, and Mr. Long is super conservative. If you've ever been to these meetings, you know that. We're super conservative in our estimates. That's why we have that AA plus bond rating. What we've said is we anticipate X number of dollars over the next few years for sales tax. And we know there's going to be an increase, and here's why. Up until about 2.5 years ago, the county didn't collect internet sales tax. So all those Amazon packages you see everywhere, we didn't get a dime. Now we do. Pretty good chunk of change. Meta's coming online. That'll be about 2 million or so. Costco is going to be coming online. All these businesses that we've seen pop up, that's sales tax. And that sales tax goes to your schools and your debt service. So the concern about not being able to pay off our debt, we're paying it off at a record number. In fact, we have the lowest debt in the mid-state area for our county. Check the comptroller's office. We're doing a really good job of planning and making sure. And in turn, we've worked with the schools in a great partnership. So when I tell you that over the next few years, the schools will have more revenue than they have expenses, absolutely. Because the sales tax is going to continue to grow. And people said, well, why is it so important? What's it matter about the schools? Well, I'll tell you, if you look at a successful county, you look at a successful school system. We're going to go from being the 5th best school system to the 1st in our county. And the reason that's so important is because schools generate workforce. Workforce generates economic development. Economic development generates sales tax. You want to offset your property tax as a residential owner? Increase the property tax for commercial business. We only have 20% or so of our overall revenue coming from businesses. That's horrible. We've got to change that. And the way you change that, again, is through economic development. And it all starts with your school system. We're going to do a great budget tonight. We're going to take care of our employees, we're going to take care of our school system, and we're going to take care of our county. And I just tell you, Sumner County, I thank the people in this room, and I praise God for their brilliance and their long-term planning, that for 8 years they've stuck with a plan and not deviated. And for the next 4 years, actually the next 20 years, they're going to be fine as long, again, as nobody does anything dumb. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, your financial statement memo is in your packet. And we go to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve our consent agenda? Motion made by Commissioner Kruger, second by Mr. Sullivan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, I have Mr. Mansfield voting no. Any other no's? By a vote of 18-1, consent agenda passes. Your county officials' reports are in your packet. All right. 3 more meetings, y'all. We're going to see if the notaries can pull it out again. Is there a motion to approve the notaries? Motion made by Commissioner Tucker, second by Commissioner Kruger. Let's vote on notaries.
Notary applications are on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. 19 votes are entered. Anyone wishing to change your vote?
Jerry almost went with the Washington Generals.
Unanimously approved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Notaries pass. All right, we'll go to our committees. Mr. Good, Committee on Committees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee on Committees met tonight. It's a regular scheduled meeting, June 13, 2002. We had 3 items on the agenda. The Music City Executive Airport Authority Regional Douglas Brown retired and is moving out of the state, and he expires 2025. County Mayor made a recommendation for Joseph Solick, and it was unanimous, and I so moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Good. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Becker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I have 1 no from Commissioner Mansfield. Any other no's? By a vote of 18-1, the motion passes. Mr. Good?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Records Commission is 2-year term. Shirley Wilson is resigning. The county mayor made a recommendation of Jack Masters, and it was unanimous, and I so moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Good, second by Commissioner Ring. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, 1 no. Mr. Mansfield, any other no's? By a vote of 18-1, the motion passes. Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tourism Board, there was a vacancy for Marley Turvis. I'm sorry, it was not a vacancy. It's a reappointment for the county mayor. It was unanimous, and I so moved.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Good, second by Commissioner Tucker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, 1 no. Mr. Mansfield, any other no's? Okay. Motion passes by a vote of 18-1. All right, Mr. Good, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, just for the note, July is on your agenda, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Good. Education, Mr. Sullivan.
Chair, we met on May 31st, passed our education balanced budget. Dr. Phillips gave a presentation. We set that to budget, and also Liberty Creek Middle. Okay. That bid was presented to budget and before you tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Emergency services. No report. General Ops, Michelle.
No report, sir.
Okay. Highway Committee, Mr. Hinton.
Mr. Graves chaired that meeting.
Okay.
I'll let him report.
Mr. Graves.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing we had really that we voted on was the 4 roads, and it was on the consent agenda. So okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Graves. Legislative Commission.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Financial Management, Mr. Becker. No report. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Budget, Commissioner Taylor.
Am I good, Mr. Kent? All right. 2206-02, appropriating bookkeeping, to remove original bond estimates for the Finance Department. I so move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Mr. Mansfield.
Can you explain this a little bit to me about removing original bond estimates? I mean, what?
I'll defer to Mr. Long. This is one of his.
The original budget last year contained estimates for the refunding bond. When we reported them to the commission, we actually gave budget amendments. It was my intent for the resolution say remove the original estimates, but it did not say that, so I'm running it back to make sure we do say remove the original estimates. Nor do we showed you guys the actual amount after we issued.
Jeremy, it boils down to Mr. Long being really, really uptight about us dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and he wanted to make sure it was in there.
Notice both amounts are in the budget, so it created a large budget variance that really doesn't exist.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. See no one else in the queue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. 2206-03, accepting the bid of Robert S. Biskin and Company for the construction of Liberty Creek Middle School. I so move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Taylor, second by Commissioner Foster. Mr. Mansfield.
So I read an article in the paper last week where the board spokesman stated no additional funding will be sought for the new middle school. So I have to ask, why is the county taking $7 million out of our debt services for Liberty Creek Middle School construction and White House Elementary? And why is there a line item in the school board budget for building construction for $6.575 million and building improvements for $6.62 million?
I can't, Mr. Mansfield, I can't speak for what a reporter put in the newspaper. I can say that there's no additional bond revenue sought to pay it off because we save money for these kind of purposes.
Okay, so that quote from the school board spokesman where it said, quote, no additional funding will be sought for the new middle school, that was in reference to bond funding?
I think so. I mean, I have no idea what a reporter put in a story. You'd have to probably clarify with the reporter.
I did, and that's what the spokesman says. That's what I'm asking. But I guess so. My next question is, so the $7 million we're pulling out of our capital, which is, out of our debt service fund, which is reducing the amount we're able to pay our debt off, as well as this $6.575 million for building construction, what is that money for specifically?
Mr. Ryan, do you want to take that?
The $7 million is to finish the middle school and go toward the White House campus.
Okay, so, I mean, when you say, so we did bonds for the middle school.
I can address that part.
Elementary school and high school.
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
When we started with the bonds, bear in mind that you go through a bid to get the number that you're going to use, or not necessarily bid, but an estimate. So then we take a bond out for that number, make it $20 million for the purpose of this discussion. Well, in the interim, since we took an idea of what it would cost, issued a bond for it, got the money for it, inflation hit. And since then, we know that over the last year and a half, construction's been 14%. 2x4 went from 224 to 994 at one point. Because of that, we have to make up the difference. And that's what we're doing.
Well, I mean, I beg to differ. I mean, sometimes when I've got a household budget and I go over budget, sometimes I have to still meet that budget. So I guess, I want to know specifically, if you're going over budget based on what the bonded requested amount is, what is that specifically going to? I mean, what construction cost is that money specifically? Was that ever a presented line item? Is that?
I think, Mr. Mansfield, the only way you can do these are massive bids. You can't go through and price every screw in a 150,000 square foot building. But I can tell you right now, if you wanted to build a house, since you like the household analogy so much, I can tell you that if you're going to build a house right now and you started, if you went and got a loan 2 years ago to buy your house, you're going to pay probably $70,000 for your lumber package where you would have paid $25,000 for it. At the end of the day, I'll quote Mr. Hinton a long time ago, at the end of the day, if you want it, then you've got to do it. The alternative is to go into arbitrage, which would cost the county significantly more. So the deal is like the reason that we save money is so that if you have an unexpected cost or expense like this, you're not having to come back and try to issue another bond and take on more debt. You've preached for the last 4 years about using reserve funds to cover expenses and not take on debt. That's exactly what's reflected in this budget.
So
I don't know how much, I can't say any more clearer than that.
Since you like to use a house analogy,
yeah.
If my budget went over, you know what I wouldn't do? I wouldn't go to the bank and ask for my money necessarily if I couldn't
We didn't
afford
go to
the
the
payment.
bank. We used our savings,
We're
which is what
going
you
to
would do in a
bank,
house.
and we're the bank right here.
You're out of order.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
You're out of order.
You're out of order, Mr. Chairman.
You can't tell me I'm out of order. I'm the chair.
Point of order.
Okay, we'll vote on it.
If you want to, yeah, I'll call for a division of the assembly on.
That's
calling
not
you out of
actual,
order.
division of the assembly just means we vote on it. That's something that you've made up. Okay, you need to speak in favor or against what's on the floor. Let's step away. I'll let you have the floor and I'll let you speak.
I appreciate that because it was quite rude of you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you.
So, again, going back to my question, why hasn't a consideration been for revising the scope of the construction to reduce this cost to meet the original budget? So,
Because
again, going back
Jeremy,
to the house.
I'll answer if you want to. Did you, I thought you said you had a question.
Mr. Taylor, let him finish his statement, and I'll let you talk. Go ahead, Mr. Mansfield.
So, again, going back to the house analogy that you mentioned, when if I can't afford it, if I can't afford something, I might have to reduce the actual scope of what I'm doing. And so the problem is, I don't see any justification. I don't see any kind of what this is specifically for. I see things for building improvements. I don't know what that's for $6.62 million. So we got $15 million more in increase in capital cost. So I guess my question is, in the past, when we do bond estimates, what have we done in the past when we have shortfalls? Do we just come out of reserves or debt service pennies? Is this a common occurrence? Because
if you go over, yes, but I think, Mr. Mansfield, the thing is you can't line item something passed by the school board. You can vote to reject the bid.
I understand that. I'm just asking what it is, because I don't know what it is. So how can I vote on something if I don't know what it is?
I mean, at the end of the day, you put out something, you put what you're trying to bid, and you put it out for bid, and contractors bid it. At the end of the day, you either pay that bid or you don't. You know, in the uncertainty that we have now, we took on the debt to build a school. You either build the school or you don't. At the end of the day, you've got to pay what the market bears or not. Now, I believe there was about $2.8 million shaved from a bid that came in from Biskin. It was put back out for a reduction of services, and I believe, you can look on the school board site, I believe it was about a $2.8 million reduction from the initial bid from Biskin to what's before you tonight that the school board approved. There actually was an effort, but you know, if you've done anything in construction, commercial especially, prices have soared since we took out the bond.
I understand that one, but in the original bond was $37 million for this middle school. And the bond, this revised base bid came at $37,216,751. But we're asking for $7 million more from our debt services. We're asking for $6.575 million more as a new line item under building construction in the school board budget that didn't exist before. So, I mean, you're looking at $13.575 million in new construction over costs. I mean, it's just a lot of money.
That's for two schools. There's a White House.
Well, I mean, I guess, I don't know the breakdown between the two schools because it's not before me, so that's why I was asking the question.
The White House school will be up. It's out for bid right now.
Well, I move to refer this back to budget so that these questions can be answered with line item details until the scope of the projects can be reduced to meet the original estimates and bond requests.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Mansfield to refer this back to Budget Committee. Is there a second? Okay. Second made by Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
you can't pull a budget, a line item out of the budget.
It's not a budget.
No, he's pulling the bid. It's all right.
Are you saying the whole, I'm presuming that you mean the entire bid, Mr. Mansfield?
Yeah.
Is that
Did I
correct?
say budget? I meant bid.
I think, I thought I knew what you meant.
No,
Yeah.
I make a motion just to move,
The entire
refer
bid.
this entire resolution back to budget until these questions can be answered.
Okay. All right. Motion made, properly seconded. Mr. Becker, did you want to speak on this or the main? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Ms. Shell.
I'd like to speak on this, please.
Okay.
I would just like to caution the commission in moving forward with this. I have a lot of experience in the construction industry, especially right now. And every day that we delay, prices are going up. They are not coming down. And so if we choose to send this back and have it rebid, I feel fairly certain the bid is going to come back higher because the costs are increasing. Sometimes when you go, it's just like our gas. When you go by the gas station in the morning on the way to work, it might be $5.53. And when you come by in the afternoon, it's gone up to $5.80. Every time you go, it's increasing and increasing. And so as a commission, we have budgeted well and put money back into the reserves to be able to take care of this stuff. It's exactly what Commissioner Taylor said, that we have done well. We have put money in reserves to be able to take care of what we need to do because we knew this was coming and we have planned well for it. So I would just say, if the goal here is to save money, delaying this project is not going to save our county money. It's going to cost us more money. The children are here and they need the building. Delaying it is only going to cost us more. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Holt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard a lot of discussion, but, you know, it's really strange to hear that some comments are being made how we're wasting money. You have to realize these projects are done based on an estimate, Mr. Chairman. You estimate these way before the projects are built. You can't build 4 schools at one time. We don't have the staff to manage that. It's virtually impossible. So the time you estimate a project years in advance, then you go out and hard bid it, which is required by state law, the price has gone up. And I'll remind all of you, you did a very smart thing by issuing the bonds at a time when interest rates were incredibly low. Most of these bonds were sold at interest rates that are fixed for less than 1.5%. You couldn't even come close to that today. In addition to that, these projects were started at a time when material costs, like a commissioner has pointed out, were much cheaper. So this has been a windfall for the taxpayers. These buildings have to be built. We have to expand capacity for our students. We have no other choice. And so today, when we're using the savings that we have, which is additional money that was funded in the debt service, it's an extremely smart way to do this rather than going out and borrowing money. And I could refer to the finance director. I would say if we issued bonds today, it'd probably be over 3% as far as the interest rate, which would be double what we're paying. So I agree to send this back would be irresponsible and would only cost the taxpayers, me, and all of you more money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holt. Mr. Rhodes.
Yeah, I want to speak on this. I want to echo what Commissioner Shell said. I've got over 20 years experience in the construction field, and I've never seen it like it is today. I will tell you, if you delay this project, it's going to cost a ton more money. Bids are only being held for 30 days through manufacturers. Supply chains have depleted. You're having to wait 12, 18, 20 months on materials. So I highly encourage everybody to support and approve this bid for Biskin so we can move forward this middle school.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mansfield, let me clarify. I said refer, you meant defer, 12-vote majority with debate? Okay.
That's non-debatable.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you...
We'll do defer
now. Okay. Yeah, it's a little late. Can't put the queue back in. Sorry about that. All right, did you have anything else, Mr. Mansfield? You're in the queue. Okay.
I mean, we're talking about, increased cost or increased capacity. When we first did the bonds for these 2 schools, elementary and the high school, we were told that we weren't going to ask for money until 2025 for this middle school and to build it in 2026. And so we're about 4 years ahead of schedule. If you want to talk about growth, again, Commissioner Mo Taylor talked about it a lot, is the problem is, this is a growth problem, is the fact that our cities are killing us with growth and killing us with approving growth that doesn't pay for itself.
Mr. Mansfield, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is a refer. I'm sorry, defer. So we should be debating the amendment. Do you want to hold this for when we come back, like if it doesn't?
I was
defer?
just commenting to all the people who commented on this. I mean,
All right, go
it's
ahead.
the
Go
same
ahead.
spirit.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
So in going to discussions of why we're building these schools because of growth, it's like a dog chasing his tail. We keep on having people to grow, and Mr. Hyde has said it before, but we don't have the revenues to pay for that growth, so we have to keep on raising property taxes to build new schools. And it's a huge problem. Gallatin has almost 11,000 residential units on the books to be approved to be built or under construction. Think of how many kids that is, and we don't have any way to really pay for it. So it's just, we got to start thinking, if we're thinking long-term, we got to have a better relationship with the cities to say, you can't keep approving all these rezonings and all this high-density residential. That's killing our kids, as far as killing our capacity to have kids in schools. We haven't had an updated capacity chart in 3 years. I haven't seen since 2019. A lot of schools are already over capacity then. So it's a problem, and growth is the root of the problem because we keep approving it. But the problem is the taxpayers are having to pay for it when they can't afford it. I know my parents can't, and so it's a problem. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Mr. Taylor.
Just to answer the question, why are we doing it early? Again, it goes back to how we just crush it with the long-term planning. Last year, we jumped on some bond issues, and we recalled some of our older bonds, reissued them, and saved the county right at about $2 million. And then we said, you know what? Why stop right there? We know that if we keep waiting on this middle school, it's going to crush us even worse. So what we did was we said, because we're in such a great position, we issued the bids then and decided to do the middle school early. Our conservative estimate at that time was about $3 to $4 million that we'd save. Looking at the way inflation's been, and for construction specifically, I'd go so far as to say we're probably going to end up saving $10 to $15 million in the long run. Again, Sumner County, you rocked with this long-term planning. Great job, and I hope we don't delay this any longer than we need to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. There's no one else in the queue. A yes vote is to defer this back to the Budget Committee. A no vote is to continue to the main motion.
The motion to defer is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. With 3 affirmative votes, fails to carry.
Okay. Mr. Becker?
We're on the main motion now.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So can someone help me out and refresh my memory here? So we issued the bonds for $37 million for the middle school. Was that the amount for the middle school? Or what do
you remember the total amount of the bond?
What was the amount for the middle school and the White House edition?
Yeah, let me. Yeah, I think.
I'll check that. I want to say it was 37 middle school. I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds right.
20 for the White House. Because it wasn't just the White House part. It was making adjustments to the White House middle school and elementary also. So it was three schools we were impacting there.
Okay, so if I heard it correctly, it was 37 for the middle school and another 15 to 20 for the White House.
Somewhere in there.
Okay, so it was 37 for the middle school, and the bid came in just slightly above 37, right?
Yeah.
For the middle school. Okay. So now I am confused by Commissioner Mansfield's inquiry about the 7 million or 6 million, whatever it was, the additional. Like if the bond's for 37 and the bid's at 37, what is needed additionally?
And a quick explanation, and Mayor Holt or David, jump in if I get it a little bit off, or Ms. Denham. Part of the way they're writing contracts right now, based on the way the economy is, supply chain, everything else, is there's a little more open-endedness in bids when we get them. And where before you would be limited, like they might say, okay, we're going to do this much, and if there's an overage, we're up to this, we're up to $100,000, and we're okay with that overage. But anything over that, the county's responsible for, because you build that in. In talking with everyone about the bids, what's come up is the way we have to write them, the way we're having to do it. I won't say it benefits the contractors, but because of the volatile nature of supply chains and everything else, we're kind of at that mercy that we locked in a good bid, but that's bid on the prices they had for supplies that day. And it's good for, like Gene said, 30 days. So you look at almost a year later at Some people, depending on what it is, wood's 40%, others, concrete I think is around 20% for the inflation. Those bids don't hold after 30 days, after 60 days. So what happens is they come back and they go, hey, that's great that it was 37 million, but it's going to cost this much now to do it because they're not going to take a loss.
Let me jump in. I just want to clarify, since Dr. Phillips is in here tonight too. Some of this is like the school bids are locked in pretty tightly on that dollar amount. But what happened is like that original bid was like 37.5 million for the middle school, but that included technology, desks, computers, chairs, like all the other capital projects that go into it. The actual construction of the building ate a lot of that money that was going to go into it. You also don't want to buy, like if a school's going to open in 18 months, you don't want to buy the computers now. You want to have the flexibility to be able to down the road so you get that year's models and everything like that. So some of that money that was allocated for those kind of specific things, but it's been eaten in the, uninflation's around 9% now. And on construction projects, sometimes it's double digits on stuff, and that's just kind of eating that wiggle room that you have in there. Yeah, yes, sir. Mr. Graves.
Mr. Chairman, on the $7 million, I think the commissioner just kind of wanted to know where that $7 million was going at first, and we couldn't get y'all couldn't really give us an answer. You just gave us one just a second ago about the technology maybe has ate some of that money up.
Yeah.
And my understanding, we're taking it out of our savings, if you want to use that word, to finish it up, and it's going to take another $7 million. Am I understanding that right?
We think so, yes, sir.
So we're not locked in. When will these lock-in prices go away?
Well, if we approve the bid, then it's locked in.
And some of those, and I'll go to my son-in-law's house. Mm-hmm. Some things he can't get now, so they're going to be at that market price. If it takes some of the later on 6 months to get some of that stuff,
we lock it in. That's why one of the reasons why that price is higher is because contractors, as they do these bids, are building in that kind of thing into a hard bid like we get for a school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Grace. Mr. Holt.
Yes, sir. Talking to David here, our finance director. You understand that $1.5 million of this is architectural fees for the middle school. Okay, that's an addition. Also, the elementary school in White House is just an estimate. We know we can't do it for that estimate, and that's where the additional money's coming, because when we hard bid that out, it's going to be much higher than what the original estimate is. So I just wanted to bring that up. Mm-hmm. Everybody's kind of confused about the money, but what we're doing, we're trying to appropriate the money so we can get that thing hard bid and get that job going. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. All right, there's no one else in the queue. A yes vote is to approve the bid for the construction of Liberty Creek Middle School. A no vote is to vote against the bid.
Resolution is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $18 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 17 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. I will apologize to the commission, the chamber, and Mr. Mansfield. I was a little heated, and I apologize. We're passionate about these issues, and Mr. Mansfield's passionate. I'm passionate. Sometimes we butt heads, but I respect your opinion and your representing of your constituents, Mr. Mansfield. So I apologize.
I messed up the microphone.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor. We're past the point of getting an apology for that.
I know. It's more if I actually get it right. All right, we're going to go with 2206-04, appropriations to nonprofit charitable organizations for Sumner County for 2022 through 2023 fiscal year. This is the one where we allocate a set money, and then there's a committee that meets in the summer, and they review all the applications from the various nonprofits that are requesting it, and they deem what does and doesn't get it, based on their criteria. I so move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Taylor, second by Commissioner Stewart. Mr. Mansfield.
Normally, can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Chamber? I know we have poor audio in here. It's for charitable contributions. However, this one's a little bit different. because we've done something different with our tax rate that I don't agree with. We're moving $1.3 million, or 2 pennies, out of our debt service in order to do a one-time donation to the volunteer fire departments. I don't have a problem giving our volunteer fire. I've always been a big supporter of our volunteer fire. Shackle Island Volunteer Fire is my fire department. I've been to all the fundraisers, supported them all, contributed, worked all the fundraisers, both the turkey shoots and the pancake breakfast. So my volunteer fire is very dear to my heart in my district. However, when we start moving pennies out of the tax rate, which we've never done officially before, not in my tenure, that to me is just a step closer to volunteer, fire tax districts. And it's just setting a bad precedent in my opinion. Fire tax district would create a new line item on the tax rate for county residents only. It would astronomically increase the cost. I know that's what we're not doing here now, but to me, it's laying a foundation. Everything I see this commission doing is pushing towards fire tax districts, which I am adamantly opposed to. Even one commissioner stated in an email a couple years ago that it would generate an enormous pushback from county residents. So, and just to clarify, volunteer funding, fire department funding is not funded in the tax rate any more than janitorial services is funded in the tax rate. We have 5 divisions of the tax rate: county general, debt service, highway. We have schools and our capitals. Everything's funded out of those 5 tax rate divisions. But this is the first time we are actually doing something like this out of debt service, which again reduces our ability to pay off debt this year. So I want to make a motion to move to put 2 pennies back into debt services and pull $1.3 million from the hospital fund in order to cover this charitable giving for the volunteer fire department as far as a line item.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Mansfield, seconded by Commissioner Graves. Let me restate the motion. Mr. Mansfield, as I understand, what you're saying is you want to put the 2 pennies back in the tax rate and debt services and pull about $1.3 million out of the hospital fund, okay, for economic development. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Goode.
Clarification, sir. We haven't done anything with the tax rate yet. How can we make a motion that we haven't done the tax rate?
I mean, you
basically say you're going to. I'm just curious if that's something.
Well, I'll be glad to make a motion that we take $1.3 million out of the hospital fund, which is part of our budgetary process. I can do it anytime.
Yeah.
I'll do that tonight.
Okay. Okay. So you want to get the 1.3 million from the hospital fund. Okay. All right. Okay. Motion second. Still good there. Mr. Goode.
Mr. Chairman, the hospital fund is set up very specific what can and can't be used for ECD. To the law director, can I finish? Since you're being so correct on everything.
Go ahead, Mr. Goode.
And maybe the law director can speak to that. Unless it's been changed, that's the way it's always been set up.
Mr. Lawing.
It was by resolution, but I hit it for a different reason. We're only projecting $480,754 in the hospital fund. So unless we cut some other appropriations, there wouldn't be 1.3 million to use for this. From that. That's what I was saying, but the ECD requirement is from a resolution the board adopted, I don't know, several years back, but the board could actually vote to override that technically.
Okay. All right.
Is my understanding, unless the law director has something different.
The settlement that we reached with the bankruptcy court years and years ago, that was one of the pieces that we made is that would be used for economic development, and then they agreed as part of the settlement that they would provide the health care at the hospital for the jail inmates, which they continue to do through 2035.
Let me see if I can offer a path going forward. My understanding, Ms. Law Director, is that if this motion, you could pull money by resolution for something other than ECD if it gets a majority vote in the county commission. Right. So my understanding would be is that if Mr. Mansfield's motion carries with a majority, he would also have the majority support to override the resolution to use it for economic development purposes.
Correct.
So I don't think we have to, I think we can set aside that battle. If he gets a majority to pull it out of the hospital fund, I think then Mr. Lawing will have to make a note of the amount of money that we will have to pull from other expenditures should that pass. My understanding is, Mr. Mansfield, the number you used was about 1.3 million. Mr. Lawing said there's about 483,000. Is that correct, Mr. Lawing? Okay, so we would,
So we got all that money still there.
right, right. So we would just have to make a note that we'll have to find an extra $900,000 if that passes.
I do have a point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Put back in the queue. Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Yes, sir.
Again, I've read all about that resolution. It is not restricted for ECD at all. We've used it for a lot of different things. I followed the history. I've talked extensively with the finance director about it. It originally was passed because it was going to have to be financially tied to some investment. That never carried through, so therefore the resolution never really materialized. Therefore, the money never really was just for ECD. It could be used for anything. So it's just, the spirit of it was, I mean, that's what everybody says, but that's not, we're not legally bound to it in any way. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
So, but my motion is to move $1.3 million from a hospital fund to cover this request. I mean, honestly, I'm not happy about doing this anyway because, we don't have $14 million every year. Volunteer fire wants another new truck. I know some of the volunteer fire departments, they like actually the older trucks because they can get parts for them, get a new truck. It's a lot more electronics, but I know that was committed back in December. I wasn't here, so I don't want to leave the Highland Fire Department hanging if they've already ordered that truck, which I believe they have. Just correct me if I'm wrong. But so that's why I'm moving to put the $1.3 million from the hospital fund towards this charitable contribution expenditure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Mr. Tinsley, you were in the queue, and were you holding? Okay, all right. All right, let's see, Mr. Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to echo what, it's been a lot of other uses and other than economic development. And the rural fire departments or volunteer fire departments are dear to my heart. They do a lot of good. It's not only about that. It's a lot of first responders. They help with the EMS, and different things. And that's one reason I believe that we ought to secure this from the hospital fund, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Graves. Commissioner Chris Taylor. Okay. Commissioner Hinton.
We have money from the hospital because somebody decided to sell it one time. And I think the wisdom that went along with that decision was that there may come a day when you'll be desperate for money and the hospital fund kind of covers you. It's like the last piggy bank and your last hammer swing. You can get a little money out of the hospital fund, and I don't think we're facing that. I'm not downplaying the need of the equipment for the volunteer fire department, but I don't think we're financially in a position to drop down to the level of robbing the hospital fund because maybe we don't want to fund it from somewhere else. Now, I've always looked at the hospital fund as when you didn't have options. If there was nowhere else to go, then you go to the hospital fund. And I think it's bad business to on a whim with about 30 minutes worth of mental debate for each one of us to tap into the hospital fund. If we do it the way it's presented, 2 years from now you won't know the difference. If you deplete the hospital fund, if you start down that trail, 2 years from now there may not be a hospital fund. So I would really hate to break the last piggy bank that we got sitting anywhere on the shelf. So I'm going to vote against this, that we go to the hospital fund.
Thank you, Mr. Hinton. Mr. Becker.
Yeah, can I get clarification? How much money is currently, as of today, in the hospital fund? Mr. Long?
Mr. Long, can you give Mr. Becker clarification how much is in the hospital fund?
It would be somewhere around 9.1 million, but at the beginning of the year, about $800,000 was for a note. Of that was a note for the airport authority that was to be exchanged for property, and they exchanged it this year. So it brought the amount down $800,000, and then the appropriations this year has $7.5 million for the match for the 386 overpass, $118,000 for an airport match, and $100,000 for Forward Summer, and that's where you come down to the $487.54 plus about $30,000 worth of interest goes back in. Did that answer your question, Mr. Becker?
Yes. So right now is about 9 million.
It's roughly 9 minus 800,000 because we had to take the note out this month.
And so for the budget we're voting on tonight, there's the 800 and something that you just mentioned?
The 800,000's already been taken out. All those
I mean, the 8
aforementioned items have been taken out to bring us to $480,754.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Long, in regard to our conversation the other day on the telephone, what will be the balance if everything is in place in the budget to be taken from this, what will be left in the hospital fund?
Not mentioning the 1.3 million, but it would be 480,754.
So we will have taken it down to 400,000.
But basically,
Not 9 million.
Basically, if the budget passes, it'll be somewhere below 500,000 by the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde, was that your question? Are you, okay. Mr. Graves?
Maybe I missed it somewhere. What is this, I see a appropriation, but what is this $1.28, $280,834? What kind of approach, what's this going to, in other words?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
The
Mr. Lawing may understand exactly.
The $1.2 million, what is that money, where's that money going and what is it used for?
You mean for the
Fire department.
Oh, okay, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My understanding, that's just been appropriated to the fire departments, and generally each year for the extra funds, they meet and they kind of, I guess, amongst themselves through the committee decide what it's going to be used for exactly. But I think right now, one of them is going to be used for a fire truck for, was it, one of you mentioned a minute ago.
Mr. Taylor, do you know what the?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Hang on, let me let Mr. Taylor answer.
What was done, Mr. Graves, was they're given $24,000 a year, and that money's supposed to be used for matching grants with the state or federal government, so that way they have money on hand to do that. There's no way for them to ever raise the money for heavy equipment. It's $500,000, and they last about 30 years, so they would fall under a bond issue. In speaking with them, at one point this past fall, Highland was down with both of their engines. So they had zero response and were trying to bring an engine up from somewhere else. At that point, we looked at it and we said we could use one-time funds, and talking with Ms. Denham to make sure we didn't have any kind of maintenance of effort. And what we would do is the fire chiefs got together, and much like they always do, they decided what the order would be and how it would be, and they have since come up with a list of heavy equipment that they would need. Again, these are resources that they'll never be able to raise by themselves through natural means, and so the idea was to help them to ensure that we do have appropriate coverage for the county. And they're our fire department, that's it. I really don't know any other way to say it, sir.
Okay. Mr. Graves, does that answer your question?
But where's it list at? I remember, was it last budget year, we had a list of what they was going to use that other money for?
Yes, sir. What happens is each year they get a penny out of the tax rate, and what happens is each one gets $24,000. There's $132,000 that's left over. They divvy it out amongst themselves for whatever minor equipment they might need, scuba gear, whatever it'll be, and they come up with that list each year, present it to emergency services, and it's approved. This year, it would be $1.2 million specifically for heavy equipment. They're going to come up with that list, present it to emergency services, and it'll be approved by that group.
Thank you.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Thank you, Mr. Graves. There's no one left in the queue. We've had a lot of debate, so let me restate what the motion is before we vote. A yes vote is to move the $1.3 million out of the hospital fund, requiring later cuts in the budget to the hospital fund, and not use the pennies from the tax rate. Okay. So a yes vote is to do that. A no vote is to continue on the main motion.
The amendment to take the funds from the hospital fund is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $18 votes are entered. Anyone not voting wish to vote? Anyone wish to change your vote? With 3 affirmative votes, the amendment fails to carry. We are back on the main motion.
Okay, back on the main motion. I don't see anyone in the queue. Let's vote on the main motion, which is to appropriate for the nonprofit charitable organizations of Sumner County.
The main motion is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. With 17 affirmative votes, the main motion is approved.
All right, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir. 05, appropriating for the various funds, departments, institutions, officers, and agencies of Sumner County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. I so move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Foster. Mr. Hyde, you're first in the queue.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say a couple of things leading up to my motion.
Yes, sir.
If you give me that liberty.
Absolutely.
I've been on the commission for about 30 years, and I have seen the commission in this pendulum effect, back and forth, 4 times. And I say this with all due respect to everyone here. When you get caught in one of those, it's not I dislike you, I dislike what you stand for necessarily, or anything of that sort. I never took it that way because, believe me, I've been at the butt end of some of that pendulum swing. But because of that, we have had some people elected to the commission recently because the public has said we were willing to go so far, but we're not willing to go any further. We want to review this. We want to step back, take a breath, and review what we're doing. Based on that, I would like to suggest, before we do these allocations, that we remove from the budget and put it on hold, not necessarily remove it, but put it on hold, all capital projects that are involved in this budget that exceed $1 million to be reviewed by the new commission. Now, that is not going to destroy anyone's ideas of what ought to be done. We're talking about 2 months or 3 months. And I would just like to ask that we do that and allow them to review and to approve or disapprove.
And what's on the, so would that just be general budget? Okay. Mr. Hyde, just to clarify, I'm talking to the law director, is that for everything in the GP, like in the general county budget?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So for the general county budget?
We don't have any authority over the school budget. I very well know that.
Yeah.
But it is.
You've been on that side too a few times, Mr. Hyde?
I fought that battle for the school system several times.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I've got a motion from Mr. Okay, let me just clarify, Mr. Mansfield, to make sure you still want to second it. My understanding is that we would put all general county capital budget projects over $1 million on hold for 3 months for the new commission. Mr. Hyde, does that capture it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mansfield, you go with that second? All right, Mr. Mansfield, are you wanting to speak, or are you just on the second?
Speaking on budget, so.
Okay. Okay. All right, Mr. Tinsley?
I have a question. Leah might be able to answer this. She probably is a little bit more of a astute legal mind than I am. Is when we were elected in 2018 and we were set that September, we were set for a full 4-year term. Am I correct in saying that? So in saying that we were elected in 2018 to vote on the budget for 4 years, including tonight.
You serve until the new commission is sworn in.
And they're sworn in September. So I'm currently a county commissioner in Sumner County. Supposedly supposed to be voting on the budget, which is one of our actual few duties. Okay. I was just trying to make sure that I understood that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tinsley. Mr. Becker.
Yeah, can someone give some clarification of what this would impact? So if anything over $1 million over the next 2 or 3 years, or 2 or 3 months, what would that impact?
Yeah, let me go to Mr. Taylor, and then Mr. Holt will go to you.
The biggest one that would come to mind immediately, Jerry, is the state awarded $90 million for the connection of 386 to 109. But it requires us to have $20 million matching from all of Sumner County. The county's portion is $10 million. So if we don't do anything over $1 million, we won't be able to approve appropriating the money for the matching part of the state's money for the connection of 386 to 109. And I will say, in speaking with different people through TDOT and other places, that the feeling is if that's not done, it doesn't make any sense in TDOT's mind for why they need to finish 386, which is Vietnam veterans, because there's no sense having a bypass that's 6-7 lanes that chokes down like it does. So that was one of the key components of that. We also have some different capital that are, I'm trying to think right offhand, David, that's the biggest one that would get hit as far as this goes. There's some money for a maintenance building that we're creating that right now all maintenance is done out of the basement, which I won't say meets OSHA standards, but probably. And we need to, at some point, take care of that. And we've actually reached out to future administrations to make sure they were comfortable with it. We also have the volunteer fire. So that would be one of the other issues that would come up. And am I missing any on that, David?
Let me jump over to Mayor Holt was in
Yeah.
the queue. Let me go to him. And
Sorry.
then Mr. Long can jump in after that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is not a good idea. That guts the capital budget. I don't think that's going to help anybody in the future, whether that's the, whenever that happens, the newly elected mayor or the newly elected county commission. Commissioner Taylor is right. 386 is a $1 billion project, $1 billion. The first phase is scheduled to start in 2024. Our population's growing. If you kill that project, that has ramifications on the entire project. 386 will be 6-lane with a element of transit to be determined by TDOT. That possibly could be bus on shoulder, could possibly be a new technology. The problem is if you kill the end, the end process to where you straighten out the mess at the traffic signalization along Hollow Pike and you don't make it limited access all the way to the 109 bypass in Gallatin, that's going to affect the rest of the timetable for 386. So if there is ever an economic development project in Sumner County, this is of the highest importance because you've got a huge investment. If you look at the investment that Sumner County has compared to the counties that surround us and based that on the population per capita, ours clearly is over and above any county around here in Middle Tennessee. Now remember, we're challenged. We don't have an interstate that goes through us, only on one edge down in Millersville. The rest of the county is really dependent upon 109, the 109 bypass in Portland that's yet to be done, and straightening out 386 that connects into that. And that gives us access to Nashville. And so I think it would be very short-sighted to do this. TDOT is on board. This has taken years under a lot of you being here supporting me in my administration, working through Ford Sumner, through TDOT, through the governor's office to get this on board and proceeding. And of course, Gallatin will be a partner of this, but this is us doing our part. And I can tell you that Williamson County pitched in a lot more money than this to complete Mack Hatchery. So this is a really is going to benefit everybody in Sumner County, economically, transportation-wise, and is a great value for the amount of money we're putting in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Mr. Koo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify on a couple of things. Number one, I would agree with the last couple of speakers that delaying this would be disastrous for numerous reasons. But I also want to address, that's been said in the last commission meeting and this meeting, and piggyback on Commissioner Tinsley. Some people like it, some people don't. But we're commissioners here until September. It would be a derelict of duty to not do what you are elected to do. And to my colleague that used the analogy of the pendulum that does go back and forth, and I understand that. But I was here, and I think there's 4 others sitting here, maybe 5, that was here the last time the pendulum went back, and no one suggested anyone to not do their duty and vote, and no one didn't not vote that's sitting here. So it would be a bad decision to take that advice.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to emphasize that to my colleague on the other side of the room, this commission has the authority. I never said that. I indicated that we do have the authority to do whatever we want to until midnight the day we leave. That's not the issue. I'm just talking about what is the right thing to do. And I don't remember, I may be mistaken, and I'll be glad to go back and check minutes. I think I will after this. I don't think the previous commission did anything really big like this in the last couple of 3 meetings. But the one thing that I will say is this. 386 may be the busy section of state road in this county, but we have many other state roads in this county that are very important. Just as an example, Shackle Island, which is in great need of expansion, great need of expansion. I travel it almost every day. And so I'm just saying we need to review this. And personally, I think when we open this door, we're taking on the responsibility of state highways in this county. You've never seen the like of tax increases then to support that kind of venture.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hinton.
I'm always a little bit uncomfortable when I wind up on the opposite side of my friend, Mr. Hyde. But I kind of buy into the philosophy is that I was elected and sent down here, and probably some people have grieved over that. But anyway, I asked for their vote, and they gave it to me, and I raised my hand and said I'd do thus and so. And this business is before this body, and is this body, in my estimation's responsibility to step up and deal with it. Now, I don't know we'll make the right decision. We'll make a decision, and I don't know whether it'll be the right one or not, but I guess when I asked people to send me down here that I was willing to take responsibility for the outcome. I've been in positions a few times to support or justify to people things that I voted against. But it was because this body in its wisdom decided to take a certain route, and so we all took that route. I tend to lean that way every time that I can. I mean, I don't ever remember saying that, well, I didn't vote for it. I don't plan on doing that. We as a body, and if I didn't have enough influence to change the outcome, then that was my failure, not the fact that the body went ahead and did that. So, like I said, I'm always a little bit uncomfortable when me and Mr. Hyde vote different, but I think the business is before us, and I think it behooves us to handle it because it's before us, take the vote and let the votes decide how this will come out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinton. Ms. Kruger.
I was just going to add that I do remember when I was sworn in September of 2014, there was a budget that was passed at a special called meeting, not even a regular meeting, a special called meeting, June 30th, 2014, after the May primaries, but before we were sworn in September. Some of the things that were on that budget were there was a new judge with the support staff at courthouse. I think there was 13 or 14 SROs that were passed for that. That budget passed without any funding for it whatsoever. Because in case anybody doesn't remember, we didn't pass a tax rate until October of that year. But yet there was a special called meeting on June 30th of 2014 to pass the budget. So I just want to clarify that. That is out there. I would certainly not want to be a part of doing something like that. If we're going to pass a budget, then we need to be prepared to pass whatever the funding mechanism is for it as well. And that I will support, but I won't support passing half of it and then passing the buck on for somebody else to fund it.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Mr. Long, did you have something you wanted to?
About what it would affect if we are only looking at county general fund, as discussed earlier, to affect 386, the fire department, and through the ARPA, there's actually 2 facilities that are over $1 million each, a potential set of voting machines, the broadband and the water projects. Anything with those would have to be put on hold also if they're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that reviewing these is a bad idea. But I tell you what I do believe. I believe that we hadn't taken care of our Sumner County roads, our highway department very well. And I realize 386 is very important. That bottleneck down there is really important. I'm hoping that the state of Tennessee would be lenient to looking toward us to take care of our own roads too. I'm gonna go to the duck in the pothole. We still got a lot of potholes out there, and several ducks are probably in them when it rains. They make a pond out of them. But it's a lot better, but we're not taking care of our own highways, our Sumner County rural roads. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Mr. Foster.
Call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I do want to speak.
Okay. Let me, well, we got a call for the question.
I was in the queue first.
You'd already spoke.
Not on this. I was going to talk.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Our rules are that.
Yeah, he's got the floor.
Right.
Okay.
That the call for the question precludes a speaker that's already spoke.
Okay.
Point of order.
Okay.
Point.
Our practice, hang on. Okay. Our practice is to try to get everybody in. I believed that you had already spoken. Hang on. But I asked you if you wanted to speak on this or if you wanted to wait for the main motion, and you said you were on the main motion for the budget. So I went through the queue because you did not indicate until Mr. Foster made his motion. So his motion takes precedence over you. Now, if the motion fails, you'll be up next to speak. All right. Yes vote is to call the question. A no vote is to continue debate. It will require 16 votes to end debate.
The vote for the question is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $18 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 13 affirmative votes, fails to carry.
Okay, Mr. Mansfield, go ahead.
So the reason I wanted to speak is a lot of people kept talking about 386 since we started elaborating on what all this money is for. And that's a good question because I've been up here for 4 years and I've not heard anybody talking about us paying money for 386. It's the first time. We've got $7.5 million that we're pulling out of the hospital fund and $2.5 million we're taking out of debt services on the tax rate for a total of $10 million. And first I've heard of it, and the senior commissioner from the 2nd District mentioned that, he didn't like the idea that we're going to drain a hospital fund, and this is exactly what this budget does, down to $400,000. It drains the hospital fund and leaves basically the next commission without any kind of parachute for the economic storm that's not just coming. It's here. We're on the brink of it. And it's a large waterfall that we're getting ready to crash into this canyon. So, my question is, we're talking about 386. I've not seen anything as far as a contract or I heard $20 million, but we're doing 10. Who's doing the other $10 million? And I don't know anything about this. And so I would like to know why. Is there a contract? I think it's smart to put a cap on this for the next commission to look at, or at least us refer for a month or two, or table it until we can actually know what this is exactly in the details, because it's the first the public's heard about it, it's the first I've heard about it, and we're spending $10 million out of our budget and completely wiping out our hospital fund, which is one of our basically savings accounts. So.
Okay.
And there was a comparison made to Williamson County. You know, a difference between Williamson County and Mac Hatcher is that Williamson County has educational impact fees to pay for new growth. We don't. State legislature has handcuffed us to keep us from doing any kind of impact fees to pay for new school capital cost construction. Williamson County can do that. They've got almost $100 million to pay for new schools. You know, $103 million cash could have built Liberty Creek High School and the elementary school. So that's in like 5 years' time. So unfortunately, we can't compare ourselves to Williamson because we're not comparable counties. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. Mr. Holt.
Yes, sir. I wanted to give you a report. This was passed in the governor's budget this year, and this is due to the hard work of Senator Farrell Hale and our other legislators that helped that happen. And that's why this is something that's brand new, and it's something that's needed. And if we don't take the opportunity to do this now, our window is closing because, as you well know, Gallatin is growing quickly, and the right-of-way is already going to be expensive. That's what a lot of this is. They're going to have to get rid of the Thornton's Market down at the end of Belvedere. Belvedere will be rerouted. It'll be rerouted from Long Hollow Pike over to Belvedere at some point. There'll be an overpass, and it'll be limited access. And then, you know, it flows into the 109 bypass. If we do not do this, I can tell you what's happening. Sumner County's growth is not going to slow down. People are moving to Tennessee, and they're moving to Tennessee in large numbers. And so, unfortunately, if you travel 386 today and you live in the Portland area or Gallatin area or Westmoreland and you're having to come that direction, traffic is already backing up past Greenlee Boulevard. In the future, with the traffic light on an interstate type road, it will back all the way up to Hendersonville. So this is our opportunity to do this, to match this. I've already talked, I've had long conversations with the leadership in Gallatin. They're willing to step up and do their part. And this is an investment in economic development in our future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Mr. Mansfield, are you on the main? Okay. All right, there's no one else in the queue. A yes vote is to put a hold on all capital budgets over $1 million in the general fund for 3 months until the new commission's on board. A no vote is to continue on the main budget motion.
The amendment is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $18 votes are entered. Anyone not voting wishing to vote? Anyone wish to change your vote? With 3 affirmative votes, the amendment fails to carry.
Okay, Mr. Mansfield?
So we're talking about all the budgets at one time right now?
That's right.
Okay, we can make sure. First thing I want to say, I'm really happy to see the classified employees getting a raise. My mom was a school bus driver for 34 years. I'm glad to see the substitute teachers get a raise. Other workers, I was a substitute teacher at Beach High School for a year in college. I had stopped out of school because of a car accident, and I understand what it's like to be a substitute teacher. I was put in all the rowdy classes because I was a 21-year-old kid to take care of these 18 and 17-year-old kids. I had a lot of fun. It was a blessing with Mrs. Klaus and Ms. Lamar at Beach High School. So I am very happy about to see the classified employees get that raise, and I'm happy to see our teachers. I know you've mentioned before, I've mentioned how we've had money in the reserves for years to pay teacher raises. Unfortunately, I don't get to do a line item on the school budgets, so I can't vote on what I want to vote on them, unfortunately. But I did have just a couple of simple questions. Unfortunately, the director of schools isn't here to answer the questions, so Mr. Chairman, maybe you or another representative could answer that. The biggest question looking at these budgets is the school board going to have enough reserves next year to meet their statutory requirements?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
With the increase in sales tax and a very conservative estimate on Mr. Lawing's part, there'll be more than enough to cover it. They'll be fine.
So So you're saying that they can,
They won't need to use, they won't need to use reserves. There'll be sales tax and other revenue sources coming in.
So, and my second question is basically, so can they balance their budget next year without a tax increase?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I can bank on that? You're guaranteeing me that?
Jeremy, I said it. My yes and my no is my no.
Okay, so in this budget of $43 million increased expenses, I guess I have a question about the $15 million in capital. Is the 6.75 new money, and I'm going to say the $6.62 million is new money, but I know about half of that is coming from our capital costs, the county, we give on the county general side. You know, my question is that $15 million going to be recurring?
No, it's capital.
So next year, that $15 million won't be in that budget request?
That's right.
It's up to the next commission and how they divvy out the tax levy. But my understanding is the school's not going to request it.
I would say, Mr. Mansfield, that $15 million, it would be dependent on what's spent in a year, but it's all non-recurring. I mean, it's not recurring.
Gotcha. So it's not counting against the recurring budget for next
Right.
year. So
That's
you
right.
could see a reduction in
Yeah.
by
That's
$15
right.
million.
That's right.
Or I'll say $12 million, because there's a request in our county budgets to move permanently $2.99 million out of our capital projects over to school capital.
Hang on one
Oh,
second. There we go. Let's the microphone.
Sorry, Mr. Kemp, I did it again. What happens is each year, there's about $3 million that the school uses for books. It's put in one fund, but it's not, it doesn't necessarily need to be in that capital fund. It's listed as capital, but capital's really long-term expenses. For whatever reason, the books are there, so they want to move that money for books, which they use each year, over to their actual just general fund. So that way it makes more sense, because it's money earmarked for books, text, things like that. It's come up each year, and it's an accounting kind of cleanup, for lack of a better word.
Well, I understand that, but it's not something that we've always done necessarily. I mean, because that's taken permanently almost $3 million of our county money that we had flexibility with should we need it, that we're not going to have the flexibility with anymore. It's gone because we're permanently taking it out of the tax rate and moving it out of our capital projects over to the school board's budget. So out of that $15 million, I guess we'd only see potentially a reduction of $12 million for the next budget request, because if we're capturing that $3 million permanently in this $15 million capital projects request. You know,
Actually, remember, when they were requesting.
Hang on one second, Mr. Taylor. Let me get the microphone on.
If they're requesting money.
Outside of, oh, sorry, gosh. If they're requesting money outside of what was maintenance of means, then we have to come up with a revenue source for it. If they don't request outside of that, then no. So we say 15 million, 12 million. If they don't request it, then it's not an issue.
well, I'm sure it's nice to, tell the taxpayers how much you want them, somebody to pay next year and then just charge accordingly. I mean, I wish I could do that for my own budgets, but
Well,
I can't.
I think that's a misstatement, Mr. Mansfield. I think what I hear Commissioner Taylor saying is that the schools could ask for it, but the commission, the next commission would have to approve that. They would have to provide a funding source for it, I think is what Mr. Taylor was
Well,
saying.
for the 12 million, I understand, but the 3 million is permanent, so that's kind of, just want to clarify that.
To where we've accounted for the new revenue that they'll have coming in, as I said earlier, Costco, Meta, just the general increase in commercial that we've seen, and the fact that we're able to now capture internet sales tax. That's a lot of money that the county never saw before that goes to schools. It's earmarked for schools. So honestly, the expectation is that there will be more revenue next year than what their request is this year.
Okay, well, basically, this $43 million of increased expenses, so if you back out the 15 million that's not recurring, or I'll say, for lack of a better word right now, I look at these budgets and there's 29.8 million in increased expenses, but our local revenue increases, including the BEP, is only 22.7 million. That's a 7.1 million shortfall in revenues. or 11 cents on the tax rate. So it looks, I guess that's being balanced out of the reserves, I assume. But I mean, this budget, the expenses are more than the revenues. And I mean, when you're talking about revenues, our local tax is $126 million ask. It's $14 million more than this year was projected. And so, I mean, citizens mentioned it before. Look at the environment that we're in of inflation, or some people might say hyperinflation. I mean, and then the only way to correct that is through increasing the interest rates, which causes a recession. And let's just hope that's all that's just going to be, to put the brakes on this inflation that we're experiencing. Because, you know, the problem is all this is getting eaten up, and there's no guarantee next year that we're going to be able to meet $126 million of local tax revenues if the economy slows down, which is going to. Everybody's predicting it. I don't know anybody who has not said otherwise. And so that means people are going to stop spending, they're going to stop borrowing. And so I'm afraid we're going to get in a position where if we're short $126 million in local taxes, which would be our MOE if we pass the budget this year, and we can't fulfill that obligation, we're in serious trouble as a county, because our reserves are gone, our hospital fund would be gone if we approve these budgets. No. Well, we don't have we have like 24 million in reserves according to the law director. I don't know where the 7.
Oh, wait, hang on. Hit your microphone. Okay.
As of today, there's 29 million in debt services. There's an additional 40 million, but part of that was considered the hospital fund, so say it's 30 million. And then there's still money each year that, because of the fiscal model we created, that goes to reserves every year. So,
according to the letter from the finance director, so, you know, I look at our unassigned fund balance as our true reserves. That's cash money, flexible money that we can use. We
Jimmy,
have
I told you,
$24 million.
You might want to ask Mr. Long for the clarification. I get it from him, we get it from the state of Tennessee.
Sure. We have $24 million in an unassigned fund balance, which is cash reserves, which is basically 16.67% of appropriations, which is kind of what a minimum is. I think the comptroller's office had recommended 15%, if I'm not mistaken, seeing that. So I'm going by that 24 number, because that's all I can really see with clarity based on what the finance director has put in his packet.
Hang on.
But going back to my question is looking at next year in shortfalls and a lot of concerns is the ability to pay for things. And if we fall short on our MOE, we're only left with two options. We have to severely cut county services, which is 90% employees that I've heard you state before from a budget meeting, or you have to raise property taxes. And you can never say never, you know, as far as raise property taxes, but I have no intention to do that in this next commission. But that $7.1 million shortfall in this next budget, assuming if we don't meet our MOE requirements, that's going to be a problem, in my opinion. Or I guess we'd have to eat into our reserves to cover that. So, you know, I do have a question about the school board budgets, and Mr. Chairman, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. It looks to me that we have used one-time COVID funds in the school budget to fund permanent positions. Am I correct in that?
I mean, I don't know if you call them permanent positions, but yes, there is staff that's funded out of
So
COVID.
we've increased staff with one-time funds, and we've got to find a way to make up revenues or tax dollars in order to allocate money to those funds or cut the positions.
Right. I mean, we've done it a lot more sparingly than most counties have, but there are some, yeah.
Well, how does the school board plan on paying for those positions when the COVID money runs out, I guess, in 2 years?
Well, I think it's, you know, to refer back to what Mr. Taylor said, it's building up enough reserve to cover those, and then also looking at revenue streams coming. If you've looked, the state changed funding formulas for education next year. There's a TISA model that funds education differently. As Mr. Taylor's mentioned, there's revenue coming from Meta, from Costco, a number of other sources. I think you could also say that even, I think Mr. Lawing can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the lowest our property tax collection rate has ever been is about 93% during a recession. You know, our money has continued to come in pretty regularly. So to say like that we're due for a cataclysm, I think you referenced like if we can't meet our $120 million
126 million.
You're right, 126 million maintenance of effort. You're not talking about having to fund 126 million. You know, if we hit a doomsday scenario, you're probably talking, I don't know, 114, 115, you're talking 8 to 9 million. I think what Commissioner Taylor is saying is that there's a significant enough reserve of around 60 to 70 million dollars that would cover that for over 2 years to get us through a recession.
Okay. Well, now I want to talk about county budgets. Thank you for answering those questions. So, when I look at our budgets, you know, a bulk of this is salary increases, and it's really not in durables or expendables, where inflation is really hitting us. I know my family, like everybody else's family, we've estimated, my wife has told me about $400 a month more in groceries this year than last year, and we're at a minimum, conservatively, $400 in fuel costs without changing our habits, anything else. So my family budget's taking a hit of it, at a minimum $800 a month. So close to $10,000 a year if you average that out, and I've not gotten a salary increase. I'm taking basically a $10,000 pay cut because of inflation. But what I see here in our budgets is that, you know, in my opinion, this time of economic crisis, I don't think we need to be increasing anybody's salaries to pay it to the extent that these budgets do. You know, wages might be up maybe 3 to 5% in the, you know, out in the market, but these budgets, some of them are 10, 15+%. And it just doesn't look like a market-based pay scale. I know there was a pay study done for salary increases, and I know that they're in debt services right here. We're doing, I guess, pulling to almost $3 million out of debt service permanently to go towards salary increases in the county budget. You know, so that just, you know, citizens see that as a problem. I know that's a problem for me and my family's budget. You know, most families aren't going to want to be told that they have to do with less of their money just because the county and the schools can't say no to doing more. So, and on spending more than what's actually available, and we're spending more money in these budgets than is actually available. When you have a $7.1 million deficit, when you go into reserves to cover that recurrent expense. But I did have a question about salaries, several things. One was the salaries for all of our emergency services, which was E911, EMS, and sheriffs. We used $2.9 million of COVID money for those salaries in December. I wasn't here for that vote. And that money is going to end in 2024. So how are we as a county going to fund all of those salary increases of the $2.9 million and make up that deficit when this money runs out? What is the plan? How are we going to pay for that?
Hang on one sec. You go to Mr. Commissioner.
There we go. Long-term planning, when the mayor suggested that, Mr. Long and I sat down and started reviewing our revenue streams, what they would look like over the next 3 years, and if that was going to be a viable option. So what we said was this year we backed out 4% of the 15% for the EMS and all the ones you talked about, and replaced that with a revenue source. The intention is, Mr. Long has it crafted to do that next year. Hopefully the next commission will also want to do that. And then by the third year, when it does run out, it'll be a very minimal amount, maybe 4%, that you'll need to replace permanently. And in the interim, you will have been able to keep all of those employees in a time when it's not easy to keep employees. So yes, sir, that was immediately addressed. We recognize that you can't give somebody a 15% increase and then take it away 2.5 years later and expect to retain those employees.
So just to be clear, we gave them a 15% increase, but we're backing out 4% this year, backing out 4% next year, and hoping to make up 2 years from now.
Next year.
So as far as like backing out of their salaries. So it's like.
No, when I say back out, I mean backing out the ARP fund, which is a one-time money, and replacing it with a continued renewing revenue source. So
you're basically for the next 3 years, almost like breaking even with their salaries at that point, or almost being basically like a salary freeze in order to make back up that 15%.
They get, well, we've implemented the pay plan if this budget passes, which I'm very excited about. We've talked about it for 2.5 years, and it actually sends structure to our county employees that have never had it before. It gives them an ability to look and see what they should be. It's based on market value compared to the mid-state area. We compared apples to apples. And so depending on the length of service, the position, and what the job title came up after it was done, some received a little bit more, some less. And honestly, just to address it, we put a cap of 10,000 on those employees right now. Anyone couldn't make more than that in this first year. It's a $2 million for the 4% COLA for everybody. It's about another 2.3 or so to implement the pay plan.
So in 2 years, we're not going to be holding the bag and needing to find $2.9 million?
No, sir. Again, the revenue sources that, if you look at our fiscal model, there's money set aside from the property tax revenue source that goes towards debt services. We can back that off, which we're doing this year, and you continue to, as sales tax increases without ever reducing the amount of debt you're paying down. So you're just supplementing your property tax that's paying for debt services instead with the sales tax money that's coming in. As sales tax increases in that way, you have to have increased revenue. If you're not going to do it from property tax, the only other big one is sales tax, and it's been working great.
Up to this point, which is, again, going back to, not to keep beating a dead horse, but,
Well, you do.
economic factors is that it's not going to be great, and so that's the concern, and that's the concern with these budgets. I did have a question about the salary audit, last month. That was in budget, and I assume it's part of these salaries. And basically, I guess the comptroller's office was saying that a little bit of problems with our salaries and appropriations. Even one range up to $17,000 more than what was appropriated. I guess, what was those salaries in that audit for the budget? Is that covered and being made whole in this budget? As far as this letter that was in budget in May?
Hang on.
Well,
let me go. Hang on, Mr. Let me let I think the law director wants to speak. The finance director. Let me see if he can clarify with you, Mr. Mansfield, and then ask questions if you need to.
That's actually an audit finding of where some of the offices actually exceeded their appropriations. A lot of times what's happened, you've got some offices that have overtime and other various items, so they did not all get adjusted by June 30. That was brought to the audit committee and the budget committee, and if they're appropriate this year, we anticipate adjusting those to make sure they don't exceed their line items. If not, then they'll be brought back to the budget committee to take action. It's not individual employees were overpaid. It was reclassifications of positions, overtime, things of that manner.
Okay, that just considered salaries exceeded appropriations.
Right.
In the general fund by amounts ranging from even $48 to $17,000.
Some of your departments have 25 and 30 salary line items, and they can't run over any of them, so they adjust between the line items for overtime and movement of positions, and some of those did not get adjusted. The 16 or 17,000 was one large one that did get adjusted, but most of them were pretty small.
Let me interrupt at this point. That's not in the budget. That's last year's budget.
I was just asking, is that being made whole, I guess, in this year being corrected? That was my question.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. So I do want to ask a question specifically about the pensions. That is a $98,000 increase. I received my pension letter from the state saying that I'm automatically enrolled, that I got this month, which I think is a little bit premature because you're supposed to be there 5 years. Can the finance director explain a little bit about, I understand there are people who are, you can't double dip, you can't be a school board employee and get commission retirement, or I guess you can, you're just going to take the lesser of the two, or you can't be a county employee and get this retirement. So there's a lot of disqualifications for county employees, obviously, are excluded from this, and anybody who's prior to 2015. But this $94,000, is this just playing catch up for the past couple of years of not paying into the pensions?
Hang on, Commissioner Taylor.
When we approved this, the intention from the state, and I don't believe any county didn't approve it, was that we wouldn't have to contribute. We were somewhat skeptical, but we approved it. Since that time, the state has given us a little bit of a confusing direction. At one point, they said we didn't have to contribute. At one point, they thought we would need to, but they weren't sure. And then the last message we got was that we need to contribute. It was going to be a state mandate. So what we did was we put the money in that would be appropriate based on what the state said, so that we didn't stick it with the next commission. but it's going to be a state mandate. There's not going to be much around it. It's one of those, they said you have to do it.
Mr. Duck, hang on, let me, I want to clarify one thing that you asked. So that's catch up for previous.
And that's coming from the state.
$81,000 some odd dollars of that estimated catch up.
So 81,000 is catch up.
Commissioners a year based on this year's estimates are about 13.
I would also like to clarify, just a point of privilege here. I asked a question about the pensions in March or April, I can't remember when, and the guidance that we got from the state was that we did not have to contribute. Obviously, like for me personally, I'm ineligible because I'm already in TCRS. My understanding when I talked about that is that we were non-contributory, that we did not get a pension. Obviously, the state has changed their mind since that point.
We made our first contribution in May. It was our understanding there was no contributions, and we were informed late April, early May that we had to contribute.
And let me jump back. Mr. Mansfield has the floor. Let me jump back to him.
That answers my question, like what is the backup for that? I mean, I don't think the state made a mistake. I just think the county made a mistake on this one of just not, it's the wrong vote, so.
They actually told us, and I was quite persistent, that we did not have to contribute. Back in 15, I actually budgeted amounts for the retirement in the following fiscal year. And when we inquired again, they told us we were non-contributory, and that's why I removed it out of the budget the next year. We adopted this in
15.
December 15, which would be the 16th fiscal year. In the 17th fiscal year, if you look, there's a $20,000 increase. That was for that year and what I thought we'd probably owe for the prior year. We actually inquired at the state again, and actually the law director and the mayor actually inquired at one point too, and we're told the same thing. We were non-contributory, and I was very adamant. I thought that we should pay that based on my understanding earlier. And then I called to find out what the commissioner's benefits was and the potential liabilities, if any, out there, because I'd had some questions, and the TCRS wanted to contact me back, and they informed me that we had been informed wrong, that we need to contribute and potentially do back payments. That's how it all felt, and we made our first one in May.
Okay. Yeah, this is just another line item that's going to grow in our budget over the years and decades that I feel is unnecessary, and not happy about it. But I've been told that we can't withdraw because we withdraw the whole county. I guess my question there is why can't you re-enroll those who are there? But I'm not sure. I
don't disagree with you, Mr. Mansfield, on that, but
so
it's not a point.
I don't know the details of that, so
Right.
It's a question worth asking. But so two different things. The highway superintendent had asked for $50,000 out of COVID money to come up with shortfalls in the highway budget. I believe it was for fuel. I can't remember what, Mr. Graves. Is that in this budget? I don't.
It's under the ARPA expenditures.
So that is,
There's $54,000 under the ARPA.
So-
It was $54,000 some odd dollars, and it's on page.
so we did include that.
Yeah, we didn't do it for the part of the budget, because we wanted to make sure you
It's actually $50,076, and it's on page 83 of the budget. We're calling it Highway Department revenue loss, but for clarification, there's up to $10 million you can use for any government project that we're calling revenue loss. Technically, under the regulations, the highway does not show revenue loss, and they were actually given, I believe, $900,000 of money the year before for revenue loss. So I think the budget committee just gave it to them. And I've got it labeled revenue loss, but we'll need to relabel it something that fits the ARPA requirements.
Okay, just making sure that was in there for that request. I'd requested back in April when Mo passed away, 150. I found I worked with Mr. Dyer from our EMS for around $140,000. We can get 100 AED units to staff all of our sheriff's cars, as well as probably a lot of volunteer fire department. So I wanted to know where. Obviously, we know the importance of AEDs. Students spoke about that tonight. I think AED, good chance it might have saved Mo's life, but God bless the sheriff's deputy that sat there for 15 minutes and worked on him. He gets the lion's share of the reward for what he tried to do for Mo. But I guess where is that $140,000 in AED money in this budget? But is that something we're appropriating or no?
I mean, as soon as we get it, we can appropriate it. It's just we haven't got it.
As soon as we get what?
The bids.
The actual paperwork, it says, hey, this is how much it costs, and we haven't got
Oh, okay, well, I mean, so, yeah, I've got a bid right here for $150,000 from a company that does it, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'd suggest if you can get that to the Budget Committee, we can look at that in July.
Okay, I will. That's fine. That's fine. So those are, I wanted to ask that. So, you know, again, we talked about debt service. I just have a problem with this because, you know, just because the county can make payments this year, I'm just, sorry for being skeptical. I just don't know if we can make the payments next year. And so this budget reduces our debt service payment this year by almost 65%. And I just really think that's a bad idea. You know, again, $7.5 million for 386 out of the hospital fund, $2.5 million out of debt service, that $1.3 million for fire trucks, $2.5 million for Highway 386, $7 million for school capital from bond shortages. Of course, $2.99 million of permanent reallocation to the school board out of capital. Excuse me, that's not debt service, but $2.99 million out of debt service for salaries. And so, you know, the problem, when I look at all this money that we're taking out of debt service, you know, our bond language specifically calls, and I'm quoting our bond language, calls for the pledge and levy of tax for the payment of principal and interest, and for that purpose is levied a tax in such amount as may be found necessary each year to pay principal and interest coming due each year. So when the economy recedes, the debt obligations, you know, force the payments regardless. And so even if that requires property taxes, which in a period of inflation causes stagflation. So it's just not a smart idea. And so I am definitely have some amendments to this budget. Again, it's so much, not know where to start, but I do want to make a motion to take 2 pennies out of, can I do several amendments? You want me to do it all at once?
Mr. Mansfield, you can't move pennies in the budget conversation. You can talk about dollars, but not pennies. If you want to change the tax rate, that's the next.
Well, that's why I wanted to move the tax rate first. So that's why the importance of doing that. Well, I still want to put the $7.5 million back in the hospital fund that we're putting towards 386 for right now, to sit on that for, so we can look more into that.
Do you have more? Do you want to just roll them all out?
I can't, well, I mean, I still think, I mean, we're pulling all this money out of our I mean, tax rate's part of the budget anyway, so we're taking $7 million out of it, taking $2.99 million out of it for salary increases. We're taking $1.3 million out of fire trucks and $2.5 million of Highway 386. So I would like to just remove those all, put those back in the budget.
Okay, read those again to me, Mr. Mansfield, I'm sorry.
So the first one, basically the hospital fund.
I got that one, 7.5 million.
Yes, sir. And then we have 1.3 million in this budget.
Everything that's in debt service.
Everything in debt service, I want to basically keep in debt services.
So you want to just you want to eliminate everything that's in debt services from debt services? Or from that out, excuse me. You want to return it to debt services, I'm sorry.
How about this? I think
yes, sir.
wants to not fund any of the items that are coming from debt services. Is that your amendment for the budget?
Right now.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Hyde's amendment earlier. And so basically I want to put that $7.5 million back in the hospital fund, which is kind of our rainy day fund a little bit. And basically, I don't think we need to be reducing our debt payment by 65% this year.
Mr. Mansfield, like we're debating it again. Like your motion is, we need to get a second so that we can move to a vote. I feel like we've already talked about this a number of times.
Hospital fund, debt service, let's put the money back.
Okay. All right. Got that. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Hyde. All right. Mr. Becker, you're in the queue. Do you wish to debate on this amendment or wait for the main motion? Okay. Mr. Hinton, main motion or this amendment? Okay. Mr. County Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I've been up here for a while. I don't know tonight why we have a budget committee if we're going to try to work everything out on the floor. You understand if you do this, it eliminates all raises for employees. And that's going to make it very difficult to retain our employees. So I do not think this is a good idea. I think we need to pass the budget as presented. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, so a yes vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Good.
Brief, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to echo what the county mayor said, is if you're voting yes, you're saying no to every employee, that the pay study we've talked about, the bus drivers, the teachers, the nurses, and all these raises. And a clarification, Mr. Chairman, on this, all this 386 conversation, and the county mayor can speak to this if I misspeak. We as a county, it doesn't matter that in one of the 95 counties you're in, we don't tell, TDOT tells us when we can move a state route. We've had all these conversations about putting more money into county roads and stuff. If it's a state route, like it goes through the middle of Hendersonville, for example, or it's New Shackle Island, it's Long Hollow, or it's 386, TDOT sets our priorities, right, Mr. County Mayor? TDOT says what we can do and when we can do it. Like New Shackle Island is on the list to be widened, but it's now about 10 years down the road after 386. Long Hollow Pike will be 383 lanes at least. It's on the list. So all this talk about we ought to put all this money back towards our county roads because we have the authority to fix it, that's not accurate. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Good. Mr. Mansfield, do you want to speak on your amendment? Or?
I did. I just basically, the clarification is that I'm not against people getting pay raises. I do think what we're doing right now is more than what we can afford across the board on the county general side or any other side. But I'm against reducing our debt services by almost 65% this year, given our current economic forecast. I don't think it's wise. I think it's a really bad idea. Citizens have expressed that to me. That's a bad idea. It's just, frugality produces liberty, and, debt, the borrow is basically servant or slave to the lender. And so I don't want to put us in a position as a county where we're not being able to pay down our debt service and pay down these things in order to be able to do things in the future or next year. I'm just really concerned about that. Citizens, we're not happy about how much is coming out of debt services, the fact that we're funding future initiatives, sometimes permanently, out of our ability to pay debt. And so that is just, that's all that I'm just saying, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure where else that might come from, but I would like some time to think about it, sir.
Okay. All right, so a yes vote is to remove everything funded by debt services. No vote is to continue on the main motion. And the hospital fund, yeah, thank you.
The amendment is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $19 votes entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 3 affirmative votes, the amendment fails to carry. We're back on the main motion.
Okay, Mr. Rain?
On the main motion with regards to the budget, a couple of things. I read the other day, 55% of educators are thinking about leaving the profession earlier than expected. Part of this is pandemic related. We've gone through a couple of years that were not on my top 10 years we've spent in school. I'll supposed to put it that way. Sumner County short 50 bus drivers. We've got to increase salaries for the bus drivers. A comment was made earlier about teachers getting raises a few years ago and nobody else getting raises. That was not really accurate because for several years in a row, we gave raises to different aspects of education. One year it was bus drivers. One year it was custodians. One year it was cafeteria workers. One year it was paraprofessionals. So over a period of 4 or 5 years, everybody in the school system ended up with raises, including teachers. One of the issues we have is that when people from Sumner County schools go to these school fairs where other counties are represented, and they're talking to prospective employees, the first thing that comes out of the prospective employee's mouth is, "Let me see your pay scale." They look at the pay scale, and they've been to other counties and looked at their pay scales. If our pay scale is not comparable to other counties, they turn around and walk away, and we don't even have a chance to talk to them. And for years, we have not been comparable. One year, we were like 50th in the state with regards to salaries. And that's just not appropriate for Sumner County. We've got to provide education. We've got to provide education for our students. We've got to provide security for our people through the Sheriff's Department. We've got to provide for our infrastructure. That's what this budget does. And so I'm going to vote in favor of this budget because I believe it's the type of budget that Sumner County needs and that we can afford. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ring. Mr. Becker.
All right.
Long-suffering wait in the queue, Mr. Becker.
Yeah, finally up here though, so that's good. Lots of good discussion. I do have a few questions on the school budget. Actually, before I do that, I do have a comment about the previous speaker's comments. It's my understanding that the benefit package here in Sumner County is actually more favorable than other counties. So I'm not sure a pay scale is really apples to apples when they do those questions, but that's beside the point. No, that's fine. No.
Let him talk.
That wasn't a question. That was just a comment. My questions are on the school reserves. I know over the past several years the school reserves have built quite high. So my questions are, is what is the current level? And actually, also the same question for the county general. What's our current amount of reserves right now? And then what's with these budgets included in the budgets? What is the projected end of fiscal year reserve amount? Does that make sense? Apologies, my voice is a little hoarse right now, but so like current amount and then projected end of fiscal year amount on the school reserves and the county general reserves.
Yeah, I believe the school reserve amount is on the presentation that Dr. Phillips gave.
Yeah, and I don't have a copy with me right now.
It's on I had it on my phone and I pulled it down.
Yeah, I was trying to find it.
If you go to the Sumner Schools, no, I think he's talking about the actual budget presentation.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I tried to look
Go
for
on to your next. If you want to jump to the county, then I'll find that on the schools.
So it's, again, just to repeat my question. My understanding that the current school reserves is somewhere around 44 million. And I was told I was incorrect that the projected end of fiscal year was showing 3.2. And so if that's incorrect, I'm just curious what it is. So again, I just want to know the current and the ending of the school and the county general.
Would be on page 2 and 4 of the budget. Page 2 shows you, once you're there, the actual projected unassigned fund balance. And as you see, it was last year 23.6, this year about 24.5 million. If you go to the next page, it shows on page 4.
When you say page 2, are you talking about the second page or?
It has page number 2 on it. It actually is.
I don't have a page number. Oh, it's up at the top. Okay, everyone else is down the bottom. Okay.
Yeah, it's at right
So
after
it's
the
not
table.
the second page, it's the one, okay.
It has a
All right.
page 2 on the upper left corner.
I got you. So say those numbers again?
Last year, we were projecting 23.6. This year, 24.5. That's the unassigned fund balance. On the end of 2020, you can see it's 25.3. 2021, 29.9. And this year, we're estimating somewhere around 30.3 for the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, good. Okay.
And there's usually quite a bit of turn-in, of unspent appropriation. So we're thinking we're going to be somewhere close to break even again.
Okay, great.
On the unassigned. And then if you go over to the page 4, you can see the different funds there, and it shows the amount of fund balance used. And as we're saying, capital debt service, we're using 10.9, but 10.8 of that's temporary. And then 2 more things to note about your debt If you go back to your debt schedule, you have $5 million less debt next year than you do this year that's payable. And then the following year, you have about another $10 million dropping off. So the $20 million in your debt service fund should be adequate. And if as shown on this budget, if the $10.8 million is moved back, your fund is actually going to build a balance. And on top of that, your debt's going to drop off. The other funds, capital projects, it shows a lot of usage, but we've got to remember there's a lot of bond proceeds in there to construct schools and a courthouse. And then the rest of them look pretty much in line with the way they did last year. And highways looked that way for several years. And then on the very bottom, you can see your self-insurance fund. We're showing probably an immaterial change of about a $79,000 pickup out of $19.1 million. I believe that's what you were asking, Mr. Becker.
Yeah, so what's the total amount roughly?
Oh, add all those up.
Yes.
In the current year, if you took debt service and just general fund alone, not just unassigned, you'd be looking at 70 million. And you have highway and other funds, but they're deeply committed. Next year, just budgetary wise, we're looking at probably in the $50 million mark, because you're going to use 10 million of your debt service, but your general fund's going to probably about break even. Now, your capital project fund's going to fluctuate a whole lot because we're spending out bond proceeds and we're anticipating completing a courthouse shortly and 2 schools over the next couple of years. So they're not a really good indicator of fund balance.
Okay.
They could be very deceiving.
Starting at 70, ending at 50.
Budgetary, but you're using 10 million of your debt service, and we always budget. If you look on page.
Yeah, I'm just honestly looking for.
Page 2, you see that we budget, we have that disparity every year. So realistic, you're probably going to look at losing probably that $10 million in your debt service fund, but that's planned. The other one, you're probably going to come close to break even.
Okay. Okay. So is that 70 and 40? We're starting at 70, ending at 40?
Probably pretty close.
Okay. All right.
No, 70, 40.
Okay. So that's
you're looking about 10 down.
Okay.
So general, you have.
Okay. So I'll go with 70 and 40 for now.
Well, the general, you're just looking at the unassigned. If we look at total, we're planning, well, you've also got to think you're using the hospital funds for 386. So yeah, you are talking about quite a bit of drop between those two. You're talking about using hospital.
Does that take it lower than 40?
No, you're saying
yeah,
that
I'm
40
not
million,
asking how it's getting down to
right.
40. I'm just,
what I'm saying is your general fund had about $40 million. We think unassigned is probably going to break even, but you're going to use about, counting the $800,000 note from last year and the 7.5, you're going to use almost $9 million of your hospital. And then you're also talking about using $10 million of your debt service. So there's your $20 million. So you're really looking going from 70 to probably about 50.
So 70 to 50.
Yeah. That's probably what you're looking at realistically.
Okay. So we'll go 70 and 50. All right. So what about on the school side? Do we
I sent it to you, Mr. Becker.
Do what?
I sent it to you. It's page 6. I sent you the budget presentation that Dr. Phillips gave. No, I look on your phone. I texted it to you. I texted you the link.
Oh. That's, okay.
It's 43.8 million.
So it's 43.8 starting?
Right.
And then what does it end at?
Well, there'll be 3 unbudgeted, but then you'll have the remainder coming, the mandatory amount that's still there. I mean, I'm not real, I don't want to give you a specific, because I know, I think Ms. Brown reached out to you with the amount earlier today.
Yeah, she didn't give me that amount.
Okay. I'll feel better with her, given, I'm the chief academic officer, I'm not the chief financial officer. I can tell you that what this is pretty close to it, but she would have to give you the actual amount.
Okay. So what was the amount that's pretty close?
43.8, and then, if you look at that 3 million at the end of the year, plus what's in the, it's hard to pinpoint because you'd have the 3 million that was left over. Then you would have the, I think, 17 that's in the required amount that you have to keep each year, the 1%.
Okay, okay.
Okay, and then you would have anything that comes in, because what typically happens is revenue comes in that, because we budget conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
So there's money that comes in from there, then plus whatever's not spent in lines.
Yeah. Yeah, she did tell me that the 3.2 was not correct, but, and that I wasn't grabbing another number, but I wasn't sure what I wasn't grabbing.
Yeah, so when you have 4,000 employees, it's a little bit fluid on that, because like, let's say we have, at any time, we might have 150 employees that are out on leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may go down because we're paying them while they're on leave plus a replacement. But other times, like, you know, right now increasingly, it's a little bit like what EMS faces and some others, like with transportation, they're down 50 drivers. So they, you know, we budget one amount, but then we don't expend all that because we don't have the, but then, you know, at the same time, you've got diesel goes from $4 a gallon to $6 a gallon. So that's where there's some fluidity in a budget the size of the school budget, but it would be close to what, you know.
Okay, so it's going, so basically from 43.8 down to roughly 20, somewhere around the 20 mark.
I think so. I could get Mr. Brown to check
And
that.
I'm, you know, because 15 million of that is right, is for capital, right? So my understanding is correct. So I'm fine with, to me, 43 was way too high to begin with, but I just was curious what that number was.
Well, the 43, I think, and I don't want to go too far afield because we're at the end of the debate, but part of that 43 was we knew Liberty Creek was coming on board and we had other expenditures. So you saved to be able to pay that so that you can manage that.
Yeah. So I'm happy we're using that money for that reason, so. Okay.
All right, thanks,
I
Mr.
think
Becker.
that's
Mr.
it for
Hinton?
now. Appreciate it.
Last in the queue. Oh, well, question's called. You're the last one in the queue.
Good.
We can vote. So a yes vote is to approve our budgets, a no vote is to oppose our budgets.
The budget resolution is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. $18 votes are entered. All 19 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 17 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Yeah. So we don't need 06 now. Mr. Taylor, we'll go to 07.
22-0, and just for everybody that might have to get up a tad bit earlier than the rest of us, you're good to go now. So 2206-07, fixing tax levy on Sumner County for 2022 to 2023 fiscal year. I so move.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, second by Commissioner Stewart. I see no one in the queue. Let's vote.
The resolution is on the board for the tax rate. Each commissioner, please record your vote.
And we got one more, remember?
Yeah.
18 votes are entered. Anyone not voting wish to vote? Anyone wish to change your vote? With 17 affirmative votes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. All right, Mr. Taylor, 2206-21.
Yes, sir. This is a resolution which is just pass-through money for Gallatin. If we don't do it tonight, they don't get its Gallatin Libraries grant. I so move.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Foster. I see no one in the queue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Hinton, did you have a motion?
Adjourn, yes.
We stand adjourned.
Nice job, brother.